right. Well, welcome back to another Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt. Along with me, of course, as always, senior editor and proven last week or the last episode, you're actually a little bit older than me, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. Eric, whew, we've calmed down a little bit since our Monday show, which has been seen a lot. How you doing?
Yeah, what is it? The 5 stages of grief, and we went
Nice.
past anger. What are we on? We're probably on acceptance now. So that's
At this
probably
point.
where we are. I want to say this. Got some good feedback on the last show. Apparently, I sounded a lot like this.
Hey,
Smiling?
because I'm an uptight buster. You old horny slut!
Well, no one's going to top that.
And I promise moving forward, because we have people watching these videos in their family rooms and so forth, I'll try to watch my mouth, but obviously I was a little, and I also want to apologize to my co-host John here, that I kept interrupting him last week, and I know I did. I rewatched part of it, and I was like, damn, I kept talking over you, so I apologize for that.
No
But I
worries.
was pretty,
I appreciate that. There was no worries there too. You were pretty heated. You told me ahead of time you were pretty heated. I think I was a little bit the opposite. You were more heated and angry, and I was just more like downtrodden, like disappointed. Like
but see, you were at the depression stage.
yeah, I'm just like, oh, come on. I'm like, this can't be real. I waited all the off season. I'm all psyched. You and I started talking about doing this again. Woo, we got it going. And then you lay an egg, but we don't need to beat that horse anymore because it's, thankfully we can forget it unless we look at your background.
Oh yeah, well, hey, who knows? He's playing again. He's going to be playing a team that he plays well against. So maybe it's the time to snuggle with your Danny Dime bed sheets and just get comfortable.
Just
so we'll
feel
see.
comfortable. So,
Yeah.
what are you drinking tonight? What do you got?
I went back to the Sam Adams Oktoberfest. So I've got 3 beers in the house right now that I'm working through. So I'm back to the Sam Adams for tonight.
All right. Well, I'm going with popping it open a Palmetto Huger Street IPA, another one from down here in South Carolina. So here's to us to get through another episode of Dan Dimes. All right. So we want to kind of do this in a little bit of a reverse order. We're going to preview the game, but we're going to do that in the second half of the show. We want to kind of do some thoughts on things that are going on, and then we have some question and answers from folks on BBI. So I'll let you kind of start it off on any particular subject we want to start with. If you want to start with a question or something since the last episode that we want to talk about first.
Yeah, I think we can go right into the questions. I think once the questions will spur the conversation that we want to go in that direction anyway, because everyone's asking the same types of questions that we're all thinking about anyway. So I mean, unless you have something, I think you want to do some hot takes.
Well, yeah, I will say, and if you have the questions queued up, that would be great.
I'll bring them up.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Kayvon Thibodeaux thing real quick. It's come up and other people have asked in the site, and it might be one of the questions too that came up. But one thing that really bothered me a couple of things. First off, the actions with Jordan Renan. Now, I do wonder, just from some things we've heard elsewhere, is maybe there's a general impression within the organization of Renan with them. I don't know. I know there's he rubs some other people the wrong way. Either way, I don't think it's okay for Thibodeaux to take the attitude that he took after you lost. And the question wasn't unreasonable. You and Burns are out there as two guys.
Did you want to set this up because some people may not know what you're talking about?
That's a good point. So after the game, they were interviewing the locker room, and Renan basically asked Thibodeaux about the fact that he and Burns really didn't show up on the stat sheet. They didn't have a lot of effect on the game.
A valid question.
Exactly. And Thibodeaux basically looked at him and then started looking around. He goes, "Anybody have a question?" and refused to answer him. He's like, "I'm not answering you," and moved on. So I had a problem with that because I'm like, first off, you were invisible.
Right. Later,
there were some folks had broken down some of the video, and it showed that Burns was being double teamed lots of times. There was extra attention being paid to him, and Thibodeaux there wasn't. And I don't care that the Vikings offensive tackles are supposed to be really good, because guess what? There are a lot of teams in the NFL that have decent tackles to good tackles.
Right.
He's supposed to be a guy that can take advantage of other teams' offensive tackles one-on-one. He didn't. He disappeared. In fact, the one big play that he had was a face mask penalty that cost us a number of yards. So to take that attitude,
huge face mask penalty,
huge face mask penalty,
huge. That
and
basically, yeah.
to
Sorry.
take that attitude, I felt like, and it was very. Someone else mentioned how like Dayball he almost seemed like disinterested during the game. You know, he didn't seem fiery and upset.
No.
Thibodeaux on the other side, he comes off like he's some sort of like, I don't know, some adjunct professor of travel or something. He's just all like calm, cool. And then he even mentioned he doesn't even think Washington's a rival. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anybody in the division's a rival. And it's that lack of passion, that lack of oomph. I think it permeates the entire team, to be quite honest. You don't see the fire. We don't see, and losing will do that. You and I have talked about that. I mean, losing after a while, you just accept it.
Right.
And it's just something there that I really think, and I'm curious in your thoughts on that, because we're counting on Thibodeaux to be not, if not the guy, he's certainly a guy with Burns.
I think it's too early to tell. I think, all right, first of all, you're spot on. He's the 5th pick in the draft. You have to have him be an impact player. They're counting on him to be an impact player. Same with Brian Burns. Those two guys did not play the way that we expected to them. Now, I did mention that their tackles in Minnesota are good,
Sure.
but you expect them to have more of an impact than that. So they need him, and they need Brian Burns, and this will be a better indication this week because the offensive line of the Commanders is not what it's been in recent years. So they should do better against this unit. So we'll get a better indication. Regarding the comments and that, you see that when teams lose. I mean, I can remember Jesse Armstead and Michael Strahan after games against, and I'm going to get it right this time because they were the Redskins, and against the Redskins in saying ugly things in the locker room after a bad loss. I actually had a press pass once, and you know, when you talk in a way, I know this is going to sound it comes with the territory, but in a way I've always kind of, when you see it firsthand. So it was my first experience going into a locker room after a game, and it's kind of weird because you got a bunch of guys coming out of the shower and they're all naked, and the press isn't giving them any privacy, and you got female reporters in there. The whole thing to me was a little odd. I guess they're used to it, but I just thought it was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But they're pissed off. They lost. You know, they and this, I'm talking about Michael Strahan. I'm talking about Jesse Armstead, two of the Giants greats who, you know, it bothered them, and there were other players in there, and they're not happy. And to get in their faces and ask them these questions is tough. Now that comes with the territory. They're supposed to, you know, that's what they're getting paid for.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is I'm not making excuses. I'm saying I can understand why coaches sometimes and players sometimes get snooty or snippy or whatever word you want to use with the press and those things. So I won't take too much of that, but I know what you mean about Kayvon, and that, again, you know, that was sort of the knock coming out of college with him. Is football going to be the most important thing going on in his life?
Right.
We'll just have to see moving forward. We talked about this earlier, that they need him and Brian Burns to be the players that we hope they're going to be. And if they're not, we're going to have even more problems this year. But I think it's just too early to tell.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a valid point. I guess maybe it's one of those things, you know, the nerves are a little raw when you see something like, yeah, you're just like, come on, man. I want you to buy in on you're one of the guys. I don't know if he had an issue with Jordan before. Today when they went to do a thing, he started it off by, hey, he's like, I just want to get this out in the open. We're going to have like a slap fight or something for charity. And of course, Jordan then took the high road and was like, you know, I would lose that. I'm not going to get involved in that. But it was just weird. I think obviously Kayvon knew he had to address it from the day before, but it's, I don't know. You still at the same point as I'd like to see more of your anger be directed, or more of your energy be directed on the field where you, quite frankly, you disappeared on Sunday. Like you couldn't tell me, minus the face mask, what one big play or any play that he was really involved in.
Right. Right. And again, it's a valid question. It's an awkward question. It's a tough question, but it's a fair question. Now, it depends on how you phrase it too. But that's the tough part of being a reporter is you sometimes have to ask tough questions like that, and the players have to explain. Now, you don't have to be a dick about it, but
Right.
Now, I used to work with somebody and people that have been on the website for a long time will remember this name, David Oliver, who has passed away a number of years ago, but he was a photographer
Yeah.
and he would get a press pass and but he also did reporting for the website. And he was a true gentleman and he had a great way of developing a rapport with the lesser known players on the team. And they trusted him. And they would come up and they would talk to him. And some things were off the record and some things were on the record. But what I thought one of the neat things was in the 2000 NFC Championship game against the Vikings, he went to that game on the sidelines and he said so many of those players were giving him a hug like he was part of that team.
Oh, wow.
So he had a relationship with those players because they trusted him. They felt that he wasn't going to throw them under the bus and I'm not saying the reporters now are doing that, but I don't know if they have a same type of relationship. And some people may say, well, that's unprofessional, perhaps, but in a way, it allowed him to get a better feel, I think, for the
Sure.
team at times, and there was a camaraderie between him and some of those players, which was really neat. And there were things that we knew that we didn't share because we were told not to share, and it was just neat. And that was just neat to have that relationship.
Nice. Yeah, and it's I think the big difference with a lot of today is if you're a reporter, you're looking to stand out with all the other people talking, tweeting, whatever, and having those hot takes, having something to say, getting that question where you can get somebody to say something. It's important for your business, so to speak, but it does create a borderline adversarial relationship. It's just, at the same time, he's on the other side of the case. You also have to understand that your attitude towards them will also direct their coverage of you down the road. It's just human nature. It's just the way it goes.
And there are reporters, I'm not going to name names. There are reporters that I've kind of picked up on that when team officials answer their questions, they seem more
annoyed.
Yeah, thank you. They seem more annoyed with them. And that's transcended a number of regimes here. So there may be personality things going on there too. I don't know. I don't. We probably shouldn't get into that, but yeah.
Yeah. If you pay attention, you can see it. So anyway, that was one of the things that I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say real quick, and I'm surprised, and I don't know if you saw it. Brian Baldinger came out and did kind of his breakdown of the Giants offensive line. And his thing was they were not good on Sunday. And so I thought about it for a little while because I've watched the condensed version of the game and I've watched most of the all 22. It's a sickness. So I've watched it. And did we get so I know a lot of people talk about this with Danny Dimes, but if we become so accustomed to absolute crap play on the offensive line that when we don't have crap play, we're like, hey, it wasn't that bad.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, and that's undoubtedly it's happened because that's happened with people. We've talked about this in other episodes about fondly remembering 2022 line. Look,
Good point.
you and I talked about this a little bit. The line wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't like a sieve.
Right.
And the issues that hopefully they had were, again, more connected with the fact that this unit still didn't. This was the first time they played together. The good news is this: John Michael Schmitz wasn't an issue. I mean, he didn't look like an issue to me. He wasn't. You didn't. There wasn't one guy on that line to me that you said, "Oh God, he's another what Evan Neal was the year before."
Right.
Or, our guard situation was terrible last year, and Schmitz didn't play well last year, and he was hurt too.
Yep.
But there was the one sack early on in the game that Thomas and Runyon, there was a stunt and they got there was miscommunication, but that's the kind of thing that we were talking about. Runyon missed a ton of time with that shoulder injury.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing I don't worry about because Runyon's a veteran, Thomas is a veteran. They'll clean that up. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. And people said, and Cy said this too, Van Roten didn't have a great game.
No.
But again, I'm not really real worried about that. To me, you're right. To answer your question, yes, we're so used to crappy line play that and anything that's not crappy will look good to us. But I don't think the line is a huge issue. I mean, if my biggest worry in the game was, oh my God, what if Schmitz plays
Sure.
off?
Right.
He didn't do that. So, but the other guys we know can play. Van Roten and Illuminor played on the Raiders line last year. We know they can play. We know Runyon can play. This isn't going to be a physical run blocking type team. This is going to be more. But yes, I'm being too wordy here. But yes.
So before anybody launches themselves through their phone, their computer screen, whatever it is that they are. I'm not making an excuse for Daniel Jones based on the offensive line. I'm actually going in another direction with it. And so before you jump on BBI, which is bigblueinteractive.com, by the way, I'm curious though, because knowing they hadn't played together that much, it seemed like we almost put a very heavy emphasis on them with the game plan that we did by going big, by bringing in 3 tight ends, doing some runs, doing some power, doing some pulls, lots of pulls. We're pulling the guard, we're pulling the off tackle, we're coming through. Those are all timing things. Those are things when an offensive line is working cohesively. You one guy's moving forward, another guy's coming behind him, you're flowing through. But when you haven't been together, and Runyon basically didn't play during the summer. I mean, he really missed the bulk of the summer. Van Roten wasn't with the team that long. Schmitz missed a bunch of time. So you're trying to run these plays that I thought, and they got caught up on a number of runs where the pulling guy was basically late getting out of his stance and moving forward, and he was being picked up by a linebacker or a safety coming through, and he was now in the way of everybody flowing in that direction. It happened 2 different times that came up. The stunt pieces, again, that's timing. That's cohesive feel of I'm with this guy. And I felt like we put such an emphasis early on going heavy that way. You almost exposed them inadvertently. Like, I think pass blocking, just dropping back and pass blocking, that doesn't take as much of the timing with everybody else as long as we're not passing people off. If I'm my guy.
I'd have to go back and look at the run pass ratio early in the game. I didn't pay enough attention to that. I didn't get the sense looking back. I don't want to put this game out of my mind. I didn't get the sense that we were running too much. I didn't like the runs. I didn't like the runs with Daniel Jones. I'm already on that. I thought those were throwaway plays. That was just dumb.
But even some of the passes, though, we were still in multiple tight end sets. We were still big. We were still coming in big.
Well, that's because they thought, and Dable admitted this. He thought they were going to blitz the hell out of the Giants, so they went max protect. And he said he basically admitted. He said they outcoached me on that. I mean, he didn't use those words, but that's he expected them because that was their MO, and he wanted to protect Daniel and allow Daniel to throw the ball down the field to Malik Neighbors. And what the Vikings did is they crossed them up. They dropped 7, and again we talked about the other day. Daniel was Daniel, and he made mistakes, and that's played right into what the Vikings wanted them to. See, the Vikings probably felt, like I said, Daniel can't string together 5 good plays in a row, so we'll just wait till he implodes, and that's what happened. So he threw balls into the dirt. We talked about the swing passes that he threw at people's feet. The other passes into the ground, the interception that you mentioned the interception at the end of the game, and that's what other teams are going to basically do. Some people may blitz them, but at this point, if you're playing it safe, you're going to say, because we would have done the same thing. We would have said, we're going to let Sam Darnold beat us and be efficient. And Sam Darnold was. Sam Darnold Sam Darnold did what we hoped Daniel would do, but Daniel couldn't do what Sam Darnold. I mean, that's the most damning thing. Daniel Jones couldn't do what Sam Darnold did, and it was basically the same style of defense. Rush 4, drop 7, and Sam Darnold did it, and Daniel Jones couldn't do it. So if I'm playing the Giants, I don't change that. I make blitz every now and then because you get a fumble, because he'll fumble at some point. But he's not playing with any confidence.
Right.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on Daniel.
Sure. No.
Did that the other day, but
so as a go forward, I would think time will make some of the mistakes that we saw on the offensive line.
Oh yeah,
because they're all veterans. We should see those, because they weren't like you just got overpowered. They literally were like, I'm a little late getting out of my stance, or I went and helped, because I think it was Runyon dropped off to help Thomas, who doesn't need the help, allowing the blitzer to come around from the front side. If he waited a half a second longer, he's picking that guy up. Thomas was fine on the outside. So I think timing is going to fix those guys. But it is interesting when you go back and look at it. They weren't as good as I thought they had played, and I didn't think it was great. I just thought it was okay, but I'm so used to it being so bad that even that looked much better.
Well, no one wants to hear it, but it's going to take a while for them to play together. I mean,
right.
This is the problem with not having real training camps anymore. And that's not on the Giants. That's just the way it is. And then having preseason games where you don't play your starters, and then they had the injury issues. So really, really good offensive lines in the NFL usually stay together a couple of years or 3 years, and they play together. And this is a brand new line. The only people that are back are Thomas and Schmitz, and everybody else is new. And Schmitz missed a lot of time this summer, and Runyon missed a lot of time this summer. So now they're going to have to. We may not see them completely in sync for weeks, but they'll get there. I'm not overly concerned about it because we've got quarterback problems. So, if this was a championship caliber team vying for a division title, then I would be a little bit more, oh my God. But at this point, I'm kind of like, it'll come along. To me, the line's the least of our problems, and it'll come. It's the same thing. If people went back and looked at the old suburbanites from the 80s, and they looked at the 90s, if they looked at the McKenzie and Deal line and O'Hara, those units didn't play great from the very beginning. They developed chemistry, they developed cohesion. They had their problems, and then they became really good offensive lines because they played together for so long.
Right.
That suburbanite line was together for a few years in a row, and so was the one that the line that went to the Super Bowl in 2007. So so that it'll come. It'll come.
All right. So those were
questions?
those are kind of my hot takes. Unless you had something specific.
No, I think we should get into questions because I think that'll spur. So, all right, I'm looking at the thread right now, and this is from Larry Flower 37. Yes, that's my old Larry Flower special teams player.
There you go.
What changes do you expect, or would you make to win this season? Do you feel the season is lost, and should the organization reset again, top to bottom? So that's a loaded question. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I'll go first in this case because I'm pretty sure I know I'm going to be different than a lot of people on the website. I think a couple of things. One, changes that should be made. It's kind of hard to tell right off. The first thought is that you kind of almost have to take Jones out, and there's a whole different Jones thing that I can bring up later if we have time. But he was so epically bad in that game that it wasn't just he's off. It's like he's just done. Like he just does. He is so in his own head, and even the ability he used to have, it's just not there. Some of it could be the neck injury. I don't know, but that's one change ultimately. I think we would have been competitive if they had pulled Jones at halftime and put Locke in. It's a little hard to tell because Locke didn't play much at all in the summer, and when he did, he was kind of bad. And then he was hurt. And he was hurt to the point that they weren't even sure he'd be active for this game even a week before. Right. So I think there was some reluctance, like we probably can't play him anyway, which kind of stinks because then why wouldn't you just have had DeVito on the roster active versus being the emergency? He can only play if you're out of quarterbacks. So I think though that the big sign right away if a change is coming is if DeVito's active. If he's active, that means they know that they might be putting Locke in. Because if you put Locke in, you can't put Jones back in. There's no way. You can't go back to him, and then you're telling the team he wasn't good enough to stay in there, but Locke hurt, so we'll throw him
Can you
back in there.
imagine if they did that?
Oh my
Though?
God!
Oh my
It just
God.
horrifyingly bad.
Can you imagine?
So I think that's one thing I would change. At this point, I would change just because I feel like the need is there. Is the drop off from Jones to Locke to DeVito that much? After what I saw this past Sunday, I used to say yes. Now I'm going to say no because I think they're competent. And the other thing that it does, everybody else plays a little bit harder to help the guy who's coming in. You just get that extra bit of energy, that try a little bit more. Some of these guys have got to be pretty defeated when they see Jones do something that they've seen happen many times before. So that's one change I'd make. The other thing is you got to go up tempo. I don't mean no huddle, but you got to get in and out of the huddle and get to the line of scrimmage and take advantage of the fact that you need to dictate. Stop switching guys in and out so much where we're doing mass substitutions, because what happens is you allow them here comes the ref. They're gonna hold everything up, let them get their guys on the field. Stay with a certain personnel grouping, but get multiple plays ready, keep it up tempo, keep the defense moving back, and don't let your offensive line just sit in their stance for like 30 seconds. It's ridiculous.
You're going all Jim Fossil again. That's what
well,
we
but if you think about it, right?
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know if they'll do that though. But
no,
yeah.
I get it. But when do most false starts and things like that? When those guys are waiting and they're waiting and they're like at the last second, you dictate the terms, you dictate the speed. That's a change that I would make. Yeah. Then on the defensive side of things, it's a little hard because we don't really have a lot we can change out. I think you do need to establish who's going to play next to Lawrence a little bit more. Chapman played a lot early. I don't know if a lot of people noticed that. He was playing a lot early and he got nowhere. He's got to be he's a bit of a one-trick pony. He's a speed guy that we can bring in to rush, but you can't play him on early downs.
Well, he's a rookie too. I mean, the odds are he's not going to be very good because he was an undrafted guy and he's undersized. However, he's a rookie, and rookies normally struggle, and he may be off the team next year, or he may be a completely different player and a really good player. We don't know. So I never judge rookies, especially any position. I don't really judge too harshly one way or the other as a rookie. I just don't. Did you finish?
Well, the other question was, do you think they can still win some games this year? And I know a lot of people on the site are totally against them winning any games. I get it. I understand. Forgive me for being who I am, that I still want us to try to win, because next year will be next year. It'll take care of itself. If we want somebody, and this is the one thing that Dottino said with us that I agree with, if we ultimately do want somebody, if we truly do, we can do whatever we need to go get them. There's going to be teams above us that are not going to need a quarterback because they got their quarterback, but they're playing like crap, that are going to draft higher, that we could probably trade with. Or if we really want to, we offer a deal, we give certain things up that we need to get our guy. I'm going to worry about that later. I think we can win a certain number of games. It would be nice if we started a little bit early. I don't want to win 3 or 4 games at the end of the year and end up with like 4, 5 wins, and they were all on the back end of the season. If you start winning now, all of a sudden things change. We can change the mindset. Maybe, and I guarantee you, if we're winning, it's because Jones isn't playing. So that part has to happen. But you play to win. You play to win.
All right. So the first question is, what changes do you expect or would you make to win this season? Okay, so I think I've been somewhat consistent on this, other than my idiotic prediction a couple of episodes ago when I foolishly allowed myself to talk myself into the Giants could contend in the NFC East. The Giants don't have a quarterback unless you think DeVito or Locke can have a Cinderella type season. So the hope was that Jones. The Giants' hope was, and other fans' hope was, is if you give him a line and you give him a number 1 wide receiver, this team can be competitive. Well, that's not going to happen. The opening day was a disaster. It's just not going to happen for him. So we don't have a quarterback until he gets benched, and you believe Locke or DeVito can come in and have sort of a miracle run, sort of a bigger version of kind of what DeVito did for the first few games when he came in last year. I don't expect that, but that's the only thing that's going to save this season. And you'd have to do that sooner than later, because the longer you wait, the more of a hole you're going to be in trying to chase other teams like the Cowboys and like the Eagles. And that's it's just probably not going to happen. This team was only going to contend in my mind for a playoff spot if you believed the Eagles and the Cowboys were ready for a step back, and the Giants, if they got decent quarterback play or average quarterback play, the rest of the team could sort of make up for that. And I mean, Daniel was so bad. He was so bad on opening day. And you're starting to, I mean, I think the vultures are already starting to circle. I mean, you had Brandon Jacobs come out and he's sensing the players don't have Daniels back. And you're starting to hear players say the things that you normally hear in this situation where
Right.
reporters will ask him, do you still believe in your quarterback? Oh, sure, I believe in our quarterback. That's the kind of thing you hear when you don't have a quarterback. So, I don't want to sound defeatist, but I'm trying to be a realist here. There's an old term from the early days of BBI, a realist. This team can't overcome its quarterback issues. It can't. So, and the second question is do you feel, do you feel the season is lost and the organization needs I think the season's lost. But if it makes you feel any better, this team was never going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. It wasn't ever going to, it wasn't going to the NFC Championship game. The successful season this year would have been, you feel things are pointing up and things were getting better. And they could theoretically still do that minus the quarterback situation, but Daniel would have to play night and day better than he did in the first game, or one of the other quarterbacks has to. Now, should there be a reset? Like I said last week or earlier this week, if this regime really ties itself to Daniel, they deserve the fate that they're going to get. So if they're going to sink or swim based on how they handle this quarterback situation, because I think PR wise, they will not survive. The fans will completely give up on them if they feel that they can't see the quarterback problem that's right in front of them. Everybody's given up. The fans have given up on Daniel Jones. If they tie themselves to Daniel Jones, the fans are going to say, "What are you, stupid? I mean, what are you doing?" And it's the same thing I said over and over again when we did our podcast on Monday. What are we doing? If the quarterback's a problem? DeVito and Locke may not be the answer. They may be worse, but we know what we have in Daniel. You got to move on. And if they don't do that, fans aren't going to watch. We'll have empty stadiums in October, and I don't think they can overcome that. So it's on them. To answer your question, how do they handle the Daniel Jones situation? That's why I would bench him sooner than later, because the longer they let this go, the more people are going to say, because you saw it last year. People were already starting to turn on Davo and Shane. It's going to be on steroids this year if they don't make a switch.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see. Second question: from San Fran? What legal drugs would you recommend when watching the Giants? Life is your legal drug. Be high on life.
Nice. Nice.
Or what we guess you could.
Yeah, you could just, whatever.
We have our beer. My question has to do with Daniel. I had to pull this up. How did this get added to the contract? This is about Daniel Jones's injury clause. How did this get added to the contract? I haven't heard anything like this with any other player. Am I wrong? What exactly kicks in for season 3 and 4 of the contract if he can't pass a physical? The only thing you really need to know is this, and I got this from Dan Dugan, who posted this early on. Dan's pretty good with contract stuff. And yeah, first of all, yes, this is in other contracts. We've seen other quarterbacks fall into this situation.
Recently too.
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr and Russell Wilson.
And Russell Wilson.
Yep.
So I want to read directly from Dan Dugan here. Here are the facts. $23 million of Jones's $30 million salary for 2025 was guaranteed for injury at the signing. So that's the most important thing that you need to know. And the injury guarantee only comes into play if the Giants want to move on and Jones can't pass a physical. But it would have to be a major injury like a torn ACL. So that's the issue. It has been done with other quarterbacks, and other teams have actually sat their quarterbacks because of this injury clause. And that's the risk with playing Daniel right now, is if the worst possible scenario, you think it can't get worse? The worst possible scenario is if the Giants have a horrendous season, which it looks like they might, and Daniel Jones tears his knee or gets another neck injury.
Right.
That happens, this nightmare situation turns into a cluster blank. I can't.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to be good with my vocabulary now. That's the worst possible scenario.
The best possible scenario, and some folks are not going to like this, is he plays well this weekend against Washington. We'll cover this later, but he's had a history with Washington, and Washington's not that good. Plays competently against Cleveland, competently against Dallas. It doesn't look like he's just completely whatever. And another team in the league that is somewhat loaded suffers an injury at their quarterback, like Green Bay. They could have lost Love for the year. It sounds like it's only going to be a few weeks. But if another team of a very major playoff category loses their guy and they need somebody, if we could just get rid of them for even a 5th round draft pick, I would do it.
But can you even? I mean, is another team even going to want to pick up that contract? I can't imagine. I mean,
if you're only paying a part of it,
that would be wonderful. But
that's what I'm saying. That would be the best case scenario.
Question, because I want a drug test for you.
That's the best case scenario.
I know, but okay, I would sign up for that, but I don't,
because the Giants would probably have to eat some of the contract to do it, and that's possible. It's been done. I'm just saying that's the best possible scenario. Someone asked a question.
Can you
earlier,
imagine a fan base on another team going, "Yay, we got to"?
No, I can't imagine going, "Yay."
Jones.
But
I mean,
right now,
that's the thing with Daniel Jones that Giants fans have to understand. I assume everyone listening out there and watching knows fans of other teams. No one respects Daniel Jones.
No.
I know that sounds awful, but I mean, my neighbor's a Dallas Cowboy fan. He just laughs at us about this. The people that live across the street are Commanders fans. They know.
Nobody. Well, the Commanders fans shouldn't say anything because
that's
the one team that Jones has owned is the Commanders.
I know, but the Daniel Jones thing is it's bad.
So someone asked a question earlier this week: if he got hurt a little bit, could they put him on IR, or would that trigger the clause? No, they absolutely can. They could find a boo-boo. Oops, he has a hangnail, and we're gonna put him on IR for whatever. As long as he can pass the physical once the season's over, it has nothing to guarantee. They could do whatever they want. If they want to do that for PR purposes and not just sit him, they can do it. They just need.
Yeah, but the fly in the ointment there is Daniel might not play along with that. He could say, they used to do that all the time with IR. They used to say the Redskins were infamous for putting people on, and that's why they kind of changed the rules, is because they would stash people on IR all the time who weren't hurt. And a lot of players would go along with it because it's like a red shirt year. But would Daniel go along with that?
I'm thinking you probably should just keep your mouth shut with the money you're getting paid, and it's a lot better than sitting on the bench if you just tell everybody you're injured. But anyway, that question was, yes, he can get a minor injury and be on IR and not kick in this clause. This clause only comes into play when the league year is over and they have to pass physicals. And if the Giants are going to move on from him and he can't pass physical, then he's going to get paid.
I think it's March. I think
you're right.
I think that's why Dan Dugan, I think, was saying it has to be a major injury, not because they designated a major injury. It's because he's got to not be for the injury
from passing
kick in. He's got to fail the physical in March. I believe that's the
start of the new league year. I think
most injuries that aren't serious, of course, you would be healed by March. So that's the thing. But to answer your question, no, it's not a Giants screw up in the sense that they're the only ones who do this. Other teams have done it, but that's the issue. So, all right. So we did that one. Go Terps. Given the way the Giants operate, do you think they'd be better off moving away from OCs, turned first-time head coach? Oh, this is a good question. Head coaches and towards, for lack of a better term, experienced retreads like Coughlin was. I think that this is I have an answer on this, but if you want to go first, I don't care. Or do you want me to go first?
You go first on this one.
Okay, so, and I addressed this a little bit last Monday. Yes, this Monday. I think if they fire Dable Mara is going to feel like he's boxed in the corner a little bit, and he's going to have to do a retread. And what I mean by that is, I don't even think Mara can be oblivious enough to realize that he's 0 for 4 at that point. He's 4 coaches in a row that he's picked that weren't head coaches, and they've all bombed. He can't afford, and this is a bad way to, it's like the shopping hungry analogy. You're doing this out of desperation. I think he would be so desperate not to screw this up. He's going to go for a retread. And I used the example of when George Young hired Dan Reeves after the Hanley mess, that George Young felt like he wanted somebody with some gravitas. So that's why I think Belichick is the obvious. I mean, Vrabel, you can say Vrabel too, but I tell you, this whole thing's got Belichick written all over it, if you ask me. I may be dead wrong about this, but like I said with Gettleman, I could feel Gettleman was going to end up here. Now, whether Belichick wants to come here, that's a different matter. But I think they're going to offer Belichick a contract, and I think that's the thing that Daboll and Shane have got to be careful with this whole thing, because there's somebody out there I think Merrill would love to bring in, because he's got a crush on that franchise. We've seen it with all the players, the Patriot Connection people that have been brought into the Giants.
Sure.
Now we can actually bring in Mr. Belichick himself.
I shared it earlier today on BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com. Julian Edelman was being interviewed on The Herd.
Yeah.
And Colin brought up, which I thought was kind of funny, he brought up the Jets. Well, if the Jets job, if they fire Saleh, and Julian did not hesitate. He goes, if the Giants job opened up, that would be the job I think would be attractive to him. And then he talked about how Belichick holds the Giants organization in very high esteem, his time that he was there, talking about the times that he was there when they played the Giants, whether it was even in New England, they would talk to, run into other people from the Giants organization when they would come to New York, and then they would go through the stadium, and the way he would talk and the connection he has, he feels that is a thing for Belichick. That would be a place that would bring him back. That's got to be a scary thought, because if you're saying that out loud, as Edelman is, and you're asking a question as Colin Cowherd was very specifically, you can't tell me that you don't know that discussion has probably been had elsewhere, even with Belichick, that to know that's because there's been this talk that he would only pick the right situation. I think the right situation is the fact that his heart is he should have had the Giants job when Parcells left, and that whole thing didn't go the way that it should have.
Right.
But to go Terp's question, though, the Giants have a weird history. You went from Perkins to Parcells, a first-time guy, and first year was horrible. Takes them to the Super Bowls. They leave from Parcells, they go to first-time guy Ray Handley, totally bombs. So they immediately, knee-jerk reaction, go get Dan Reeves.
Yeah.
Dan Reeves, one good year, kind of like Daboll in some ways.
And he didn't get along with Young. They thought they were going to get along, and he didn't get along with Young.
And he brought in he's a weird amalgamation of various coaches we've had recently. He basically came in with the gravitas of, I was the Denver coach. I'm well known, history in the NFL as a player. He brought in a bunch of his own guys, which suddenly became, the New Jersey Broncos, which was just, he had the one really good year, very much like Daboll. And then the wheels just came off. So then what do we do? First time head coach, Jim Fassel. Fassel does really well the first year, struggles a little bit. Then we go back to the Super Bowl. Then we have another shot where we could have made some noise, a lot of injuries, and we just choked that game in San Francisco, but he made the playoffs and he fell off the cliff.
Right.
So what do? We now go and get a retread coach, really, a guy who's coached Jacksonville, coached Boston College. This guy was a hard nose, because we seem to go the opposite of the other guy. We want, if he's too player friendly, we go very strict and whatever. If he's too strict, we want to get the guy who's a little more loosey goosey, and he's going to be. So there's always kind of this change.
That was a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Since then, though, Coughlin, we go McAdoo, which kind of came out of nowhere. He's kind of just a guy. Sometimes you need to forget, if they're working with a superstar quarterback, keep in mind it might be the quarterback. But McAdoo got to the playoffs and fell off the cliff. the next year. So then we go, okay, we're going to move away from McAdoo. We're going to get more of a guy who's more of an adult, I guess, the adult in the room, Pat Shermer. We bring him in, and what happened there? He was bland as can be, and it just collapsed. Then you go off the reservation and you go get a guy, the Patriots guy. And there was a lot of talk. I don't know if you remember. There was all these whispers that Belichick might want to leave New England.
Yeah.
And instead, we get a guy
and we
who
didn't know what his contract was
right
for a long time. Yeah.
So instead, we get the guy in New England, and Judge comes in, and it was just so much of it was smoke and mirrors. So much of it
he was a
show.
used car salesman. He was a used car. He sounded the part, but
he spoke a lot of Belichick. He did things that were very oddly Belichick. I mean, you can only have so many guys that their job is only to play special teams, but we kept bringing in special teams aces like you play, the bulk of the game is special teams. That's kind of the route he went. And then that fell off. Then you go and we bring in Dayball, which we think he's an offensive guy, right? He's a guru. That's our offense. We needed to get Daniel and we need to get the offense. We get an offensive guru. At this point, if we go that route and we don't go take the experience out, whether they're a head coach or not a head coach, I think we go defensive guy. So keep that in mind. If they fire Dayball, the next head coach is going to be a defensive-minded coach.
Well, that would
with
be
an offensive
Vrabel or
coordinator.
Belichick too. I mean, that fits in. So long-winded answer, go Terps. But I think John and I are sort of on the same page here. I think they have to, because I think Mara is at wit's end. I think and again, I mean, the stadium's, the fans have given up. I mean, they don't, but Belichick has name is going to bring instant credibility. Now, the thing is, Belichick's old.
Very old.
That doesn't mean this is a winning move. I mean, bringing Reeves back wasn't a winning move. It will help for 1 year. I would be more, if I bring in Belichick, I want to know what his succession plan is.
Right.
Does he have somebody who's, when he hangs it up, but it would make a lot of sense. The only thing I will say real quickly before I accidentally skipped the question here too. Belichick, there was a clip from, and I've posted it on the site before. I don't remember what it was on, but Belichick came back to Giant Stadium for a game against the Jets, and for some reason they took him on a tour with the cameras back behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And he was in tears. I mean, this franchise means a lot to him. It really does. On the flip side, we did go a number of years ago. We did go through this period where ex-Pittsburgh Steeler players were convinced Bill Cowher was going to come to the Giants, and that never went anywhere. So you never know with the players if they knew. But we do know this. But Bill Belichick has a special place in his heart for the Giants, and it's not just Edelman saying that. We've heard it out.
Right.
When is the last time you saw Bill Belichick break down in tears? I mean, that doesn't happen, and he did that on camera talking about the Giants.
If they did go from Dayball, and let's just say, for argument's purposes, that it is Belichick, does Shane stay if Belichick comes on board?
I wondered about stuff like that. I mean, the offensive line coach was there. I mean, so in a way, some of these things would be kind of cool in the sense that you'd think you'd keep Rosillo, for instance. So anyone you think that might have a connection could theoretically stay.
But the GM, though, does Shane stay?
God,
because Belichick's a guy who likes to run things himself.
Know.
You know what I mean? He's a guy who likes to run the show. And Shane, to me, he's got a little bit of an ego that comes through. He's a confident dude. And I don't know how that would meld. Vrabel, I think it would, because Vrabel's not going to ask for control over, at least I wouldn't think, over the operation side of things.
Well, remember, Crowden's here too. Crowden was with
Vrabel, Tennessee.
Yeah. So he's in the front office now, so that he could. My gut tells me Shane's gone if they get Belichick, but I don't know. It's a really good
I would
question.
say yes. I would agree with that.
Yep. I just think Belichick's personality is too big. Now, people will say Belichick's magic's gone, and they may be right. I don't know, but the thing is he's still Belichick. I mean, it's
whether we think that or
on
not.
Our site that I think there are a lot of fans on the site that don't really know Bill when Bill was with the Giants because they're just not old enough.
Right.
And so they don't hold him in the same esteem as old farts like us. And Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick were tied at the hip, and they were geniuses together here. And we saw, so anyone who ever says all of New England's success was due to Tom Brady, had nothing to do with Bill Belichick, I always felt that was crap. They'll point to, he left and he went to Tampa Bay and he got another championship. Sure, Tom Brady's Tom Brady. But
Right.
Bill Belichick is still Bill Belichick. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, this league is filled with Hall of Fame quarterbacks that never won Super Bowls.
Well, look at Aaron Rodgers. How many Super Bowls does Aaron Rodgers have?
Well, Dan Marino. Dan Marino.
Dan Marino has none.
Dan Fouts. I mean, you can go down the line and I mean, for a long time, John Elway didn't look like he was going to get a ring.
Right.
You can go down the line. So anyway, so let's move on because we have questions.
Real quick,
quick.
No. Did the Giants invite Belichick back to the 100? Was he part of the celebration?
I don't know that.
I didn't see or hear anything about it. Like, he really should have been. If he wasn't, he should have been.
He might have had other commitments because of his
could be
doing. So he might have done. So, quick question for either. Oh, the other thing, just real quick on that. Do the Giants want Bill Belichick hanging over Dable's shoulder right now either? So that would have been a little awkward.
Good point. That's a really good point.
Especially when the game's 14-3 and he's standing on the side.
Yeah, right.
Sidelines, that might have been a little awkward.
They're like, maybe we could just fire Dable at halftime.
Yeah. Well, I will say this because this is making me think of things. There was a immediate reaction during the game or right after the game where somebody said, fire Dable and Shane now. And the NFL doesn't work that way. You're not going to, I mean, you can fire coaches kind of before the season's over in December and kind of get away with it, but you can't fire your head coach I mean, you can, but nobody does that.
That would be week one overreaction to the nth degree.
Well, what do you do if you do that? I mean, who's the head coach at that point? I mean, do you make Shane Bowen?
There's somebody else on the staff. Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't fix anything. I mean, so you ride the horse that you came with. I mean, that's all right. So NYG 27, I assume a Rodney Hampton fan, maybe Brandon Jacobs fan. If Daniel Jones has similar game, this is a good question. As last week against Washington, and Brian Dable still names Jones as the starting quarterback for week 3 at Cleveland, I'd love to hear Eric's thoughts on that one. Also, that was about we're making the intro shorter. Yes, and we're going to do that starting with this video. Yeah, I'm already on record on this one, and John's going to weigh in on this too. But the longer I think if he loses to Washington and it's bad, and they start Jones against Cleveland, this is just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. The nightmare scenario, and a lot of people have said this today. Again, great comment. If you want to put BBI post of the day, if you want to do this, but a lot of people said it, so I can't name names here because a lot of people said the nightmare scenario here is 0-3 headed into Dallas. I mean, Dallas coming here, but the Dallas game. That's a Thursday game, right? It's
yes.
Thursday. Yes.
Yep.
Thursday night, Giants 0-3 against a Dallas team that looks like it's hitting on all cylinders. Now it's only week 1. Daniel Jones is in that game. The wheels could come off and that stadium's going to be filled with Dallas Cowboy fans. That stadium.
Oh, yeah.
They're 0-3.
It's sickening.
It's going to be filled with Dallas. I mean, if this explodes, it's almost like you could see it coming. It's almost like it's a train. It's like you're in a car and you're in slow motion and you're in bad weather and you're hydroplaning and you're going to get into an accident and it's slow motion and there's nothing you can do about it. That's kind of what's going on right now. If they're 0-3, 0-2, 0-3, and going into that Dallas game, oh man, that's when, and that'll be the end. That'll be at that point, everybody will be done. It gets back to the earlier question, is all hope lost? If they get walloped by Dallas, and what if Daniel gets hurt in that game? I mean, that would be, it's so painful. I know I'm laughing. I'm not laughing out of, I'm laughing out of disgust. So But yes, I think I answered your question. The longer they wait on, I already said it because I said it on Monday. The longer they wait on Daniel, the worse it's going to get. That's my answer.
Yeah, and I'll focus specifically on Washington when we
Yeah.
do the preview. But I will say this: if in a game where we are not only evenly matched, we do have the better talent. They might have Jaden Daniels. He's a rookie. He didn't do a whole lot against Tampa Bay. He's going to be a problem on the ground, though. We got to be really careful about that.
That's where they got to watch.
But
yeah,
they've got nothing outside of Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. Their tight end is Zach Ertz, and that'd be great if it was 6 years ago. So their offensive line's shaky. Their defense is not that great. They shuffled through a lot of their big number one guys that they drafted on that line. They've moved those guys on. They're a team that's rebuilding. They've got their young guy and they're rebuilding. They're expected in many ways to not be good. So
they are in rebuild mode and they have accepted it. They have that everything they're doing is geared to, we knew we had to tear this down and start again, which the Giants have never done in the last decade. And that's why anyway, sorry.
So if Jones starts out against a team, and I'll talk about that part of it later, that he's historically done well against, and he looks like he did, I don't think he makes it past the first half. I think at that point, he will get pulled. I think they waited to not do it at home just in case, and hopefully that it was a one-game thing. And quite frankly, nobody played great. He played horrible, but looking back on it, nobody had a good game. I mean, there was drops. There was some other stuff. If he gets off to such a crappy start again, and the balls are going in the ground, he's taking sacks that he shouldn't be taking, and clearly not taking shots at guys crossing into the seams that are open. He's just not doing it. He's going to get pulled. And I think you'll know this. You'll know that this is definitely a possibility. Like I said, if all three quarterbacks are active, because that, at that point that they're preparing just in case that if they pull him off the field, he's not going back in. DeVito would instantly become the backup to Lock.
And what if we start seeing Malik Neighbors yelling at Daniel on the sidelines?
I'm going to think that would be,
this could go.
I would think that would be
ugly.
a number of games later. One thing I will say, I'm real, and I was wrong. I didn't want the receiver at 6. I didn't want to just take anybody. I wanted May, but I was also okay if they went with JJ McCarthy. I did not want Penix, and the reason I didn't want Penix is because, quite frankly, a lot of the stuff he did in college, it was really designed against a conference that doesn't play great defense. He's not that mobile. I think it's going to cost him later on. He's got a little bit of a slower delivery. He's got a great arm, but he's not overly accurate. And where we're at right now, a lot of it is very precision-based, what it should be. It should be precision-based. McCarthy would have been a good one. Nix would have been okay later in the draft. I wouldn't have taken him really high just because he's a guy who can play in rhythm. You think he showed it that he can in college. He can play in rhythm. None of those guys excited me past the first 3 guys and then McCarthy.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think Jones lasts past the first half. If he struggles, don't worry about Dallas. He's not even going to play Cleveland.
Yeah, but remember the question is, what if they don't pull him? So
if they don't pull him, then you can just, as far as I'm concerned, then there's 2 things at play. 1, Dayball just doesn't give a shit and he's going to stick to what he believes. Or 2, he already knows that he's coming back and that they know they're riding it out with Jones. They're doing the best they can for this year based on whatever they discuss behind the scenes. That would be horrible because 1, it makes your coach look like an idiot. Your GM's going to look like an idiot. And then it's going to look like Mara dictated this, whether he did or did not. So it's going to be horrible. If they don't pull him, if he looks bad and they don't pull him, then as far as I'm concerned, you can fire him at any point.
Well, you're playing with fire too, because if he gets hurt. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Let's start knocking these off too, because there's a lot of good questions here. From Mike from SI, do you think we'll see more of Simmons next week due to Ertz? Last week, Vikings were without their stud tight end, Hawkinson. This is a good question, and I don't know if Mike saw this, but Simmons was not happy today.
Yeah.
He basically said, he's never not played a game where he didn't have a defensive snap. He doesn't understand what happened. I will say this, I'm not trying to defend the coordinator, but it's the money backer position that they talked about in Hard Knocks. So it's this hybrid position, and I think it's going to change on a weekly basis who's playing there depending on the opponent. So I don't know if we'll see him this week or not. The fact that he said something to the press may actually hurt him because they may say, because remember, Giant players have done that in the past. Somebody did that last year. Didn't somebody on the Giants did that and they basically bent, I think it was a corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, he might have dug his own grave on this one too a little bit by talking to the press. But if assuming that doesn't happen, I think that changes based on the opponent and who they think's playing better.
I have a real problem with the way we've been using players, mainly because what you did during the summer, all of a sudden, and as Simmons said, up until a week ago, this is what I was doing, and then suddenly I wasn't.
Right.
Now, I know you're specifically game planning, and that changes. But here, my thought to this, for answer the question on Simmons, I think he's going to play a lot more this week because Daniels is going to be a running quarterback. He's a taller dude. He's a taller dude. You're going to want the more physical tackling ability. I know Simmons is not a big physical tackler, but he's more so than Dane Belton is. He brings more size, and he's got a little bit more speed there. You can spy with Simmons on Daniels, and I think you're probably going to see that a little bit. The issue that I have is we had one game so far this year, and we're already getting very gimmicky in how we are doing our stuff. Oh, because we're playing Minnesota, we're going to do this. And establish your defense the way that it is and kind of sub as you go. But if you're game planning week by week like that, and I mean really fundamentally changing how you're going to do things offensively, we went big. We fundamentally changed how we were going to do stuff because we were afraid of what they were going to do. That to me is coaching scared. That to me is coaching. You don't really have confidence in any one particular thing you're doing. You can do those things when you're fully established. But Bowen is new. They're not established.
I'd say is that we knew they were going to play three safeties a lot this year too. So that's why
sure, but Simmons didn't play at all.
I thought the block thing was worse, where they moved him from. They had him not practice at all in the nickel this year, and then he's playing nickel in this game.
Right.
And I thought that was worse. To me, Belton was always going to see the field a lot this year. And I don't think he played a bad game. He had a nice pass breakup. There was that one play to the tight end that kind of hurt us big. There was like a 25-yard, 20-yard play down to the goal line where they
their second drive.
I don't remember which safeties that was, but maybe one of them was Belton. But that one I don't worry about that as much. I think I don't know. John may be right on this, that this is more of an issue, but it was more of an issue with me with Flott than it was with Simmons.
And I think mine's more symptomatic of the way we did it with a lot of people. Simmons just is an example right now, just because, again, why would you talk about him in Hard Knocks like he's going to be this multi-versatile weapon that you can use, and then the first week comes up and he doesn't see a snap on defense?
Yeah, but I think that was just they probably went through every player on the roster, and we just happened to hear when they were talking about Anderson's not on the roster.
But keep in mind, Simmons technically wasn't on the roster at that point. He was
that's a good point.
Free agent. So you were counting on him being there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, that's actually a really good point. All right, so next question is Thor Savage 87. Thoughts on why Daboll did not plan for Flores following the classic Bill Belichick tactic of taking away what you do best. They both coached under Bill. I would have thought the Giants would have emphasized the run game once the downfield options were taken away and the Vikings weren't blitzing. 13 carries to 40. We were earlier wondering what the pass run ratio was. He did the math for us. 13 carries to 42 pass attempts is a stupid lack of balance. I know it's skewed because the Giants were behind and needed to pass. He goes on here. It's a good question, and I actually wondered about this when I was watching the game. I'm torn on this because part of me says, the old school theory is if they're going to do that, if they're going to play coverage, you run the ball. That, especially if the farther you go back in history with football, that's the way you go. And that actually may have been the better. Given what we know how Daniel played, that probably would have been the smarter thing to do. Would have been run the ball early and often. But that gets with what John was saying earlier too. The offensive line's not completely in sync, and it might have been a little bit ugly. But you got to work out those kinks anyways. That would be the counter argument. I know I'm arguing with myself here.
It's also
the
revisionist history too, though, because we're doing it after the fact and we're looking at the numbers. But if you remember, we had a nice run. We had a holding penalty. Now you're in long, so now you can't run. So and then we went 3 and out. Boom. Another play happened again where we had one run. I think it was I want to say it was Singletary got down inside the red zone. I believe it was the first time that we had this. Did they call a run again? But who do they call? They call Jones on a power sweep that goes nowhere.
right
Now you have to throw.
but I don't think he's saying we should have run Jones.
No, what I mean is once you start doing a couple of those things, run, penalty, now you can't run. You go 3 and out. There goes that series. Now you do another one. There never was a cohesion to be able to run. The fact of the matter is,
well, you have to get first down. You have to get first
right.
down to keep drives alive.
And if we had made just a couple of the short completions, which you and I talked about as a de facto run game, that would have kept drives going. The Vikings couldn't have stayed in the defense they were playing if we kept picking up stuff short. But since we couldn't, they just sat back. They just let you run around. So running became almost impossible later on because we had no chance to do it.
And I'll say this to Thor Savage. I wish I had it in front of me still. The game book is great from the NFL after every game, and I already deleted it for the Vikings game because I don't want that. But they have the first half stats there too, and I would have liked to seen what the run pass ratio was in the first half, because if you recall, the Vikings got the ball on the first drive of the second half and scored again, and at that point it was so I would be curious what the run pass ratio was in the first half, but I don't think it's a dumb question. I know what he's getting at. There is a logic to saying, because if you are going to drop, then make them pay by running the football, make them come up, and then you throw the football on them.
Sure.
What John's kind of getting at too, I don't want to speak for him, is in order to have those chances, you have to pick up first downs and keep the chains moving. And what was happening, it was like that again, where I know we're overemphasizing, when they had that swing pass that lost 6 yards, so when you lose 6 yards on a play, you're already behind the chains. I mean, so some of that is, and there were 9 penalties. I know those weren't all on offense, but 9 penalties. There were drop passes, and there were the dumb plays, like the running plays to Jones that just, so, but I will say this, I think it's a very good question and I don't discount it. And in hindsight, if you had to play that game, if you knew going into that game that Jones was going to be as bad as he was, well, you wouldn't have played Jones. I would have played Locke. I would have run the ball more. I would have, and if I knew what the Vikings were going to do, I would have run the ball. Now that might not have been work because the offensive line isn't completely there yet, but it would have given them a better chance, I think, to win. So
what I would say to that is where I think Daboll failed horribly, and it's easy for me to say. I'm not a coach. I'm not going to pretend like I am. The bulk of whatever I've done on a big football level is followed it as a fan. I did 1 year, long time ago. I broke down film for a college team for a couple of different times that we broke down film because I knew what I was talking about. So the coach liked me and was like, hey, break down film with us. If the Giants saw that, the way you're going to run is not to tell them, not to come in big and stuff. We should have gone where we put 3 wides. We should have gone with 1 tight end. And then you can have options to either run or pass. Notice we did not do RPO at all. There was not one single run pass option ever. The runs were either Jones ran it or he handed off. He doesn't even really do play action passing very well. He's not a very good play action passer. So we didn't do anything that would give the impression we might run, we might throw. We lined up in a formation, or at least the folks we had on the field that gave us 2 options. We were either going to run or we're going to play pass with only a couple of receivers and we're going big on protection. It left us with very little. So the run, if we wanted to run against some of those defenses, we shouldn't have been so obvious. We should have put the 3 wides out and only 1 tight end and give us options. They didn't do that, which really scares me because that means
they advertised.
Afraid.
In other words, they advertised what they were going to do, which you're saying. Yeah. Let's do these quick because I'm looking at the time and I want to talk about the Commanders and I want to keep this. So let's try to do these a little bit quick. I think Spartan 10, I think we addressed this.
where are both of you with Shane and Dable? Assuming we win 6 games at most this year, do you see both or of them being replaced next season? I think again, people may not have watched our 2-hour marathon on Monday. I kind of addressed it there. I
But
think
a lot of people did, though.
yes. Yeah, we got a lot of good numbers on that
Yes.
one. It's probably because we had that what is her name? Fitness chick.
We had the fit chick, which is Carly Ducote, who's going to be doing her hot picks soon for
And
us.
this video, right?
Yeah, this video she'll
So
be
stay
part of this.
tuned.
You're going to
I don't
want
know
to
where
see
you're gonna
that.
drop it in, but
She's a bodybuilder. She's a bikini competition person. She's a realtor as well.
she's a Renaissance woman.
She
She's
is.
a
You're gonna want to see the
Renaissance
hot
woman.
picks video that we have put
Yeah,
together.
she's got nice thumbs. That's a BBI inside joke. So, all right, I'm gonna get in trouble here. So more beer. All right, so just to answer his question real quick, I think it depends on how they handle the quarterback situation. I think it's going to be a PR nightmare if they stick with Jones the bulk of the year, and the fans are going to say, "We're done. We don't trust these guys." And again, Mara wanted to keep Joe Judge, and he wanted to keep Abrams, and it became impossible for him because the uproar was too great. I think the uproar will get too great if they stick with Jones the bulk of this year, and they'll dig their own grave. That's where I think they will survive a bad season if they look like they realize Jones is a problem, and I think fans will accept them playing another crappy quarterback. I don't think fans will accept them playing Jones.
I think 6 or 7 wins in competitive with DeVito and Locke, and the team plays together well. They just didn't have the horses to be able to win some of the games. Six wins with Jones, and we looked kind of like we did already, and he's just not getting any better. I don't think that's a really good look. I think that Daboll is how he handles Jones is step one, but also how he handles the team and the press.
Mm-hmm.
He's very short with all of his answers, kind of comes off a little grumpy at stuff. And I'm not really sure if he's fully on board with the Jones thing as much as it seems like they are. I'm wondering if it's true that above him, we're sticking with Jones. And because he's just, what was his answer? We need to score more points.
Yeah.
He needs to be better.
Well, he also said, though, today, he said, we got to get the ball to Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. How do you get it to him? Throw it to him is what he said.
Roll the ball.
Like, that's not a ringing endorsement if you're Jones.
No, I didn't think that was either, but I have to go back and watch the video on that. I saw the transcript. I didn't watch the video.
I saw it. It's not good.
All right, real quick. BW wants to know ass hats to pay attention to. And for those who don't know, ass hats are people that have good rumors. I would say this is not an all-inclusive list. I'd say Peppers, Go Deep 13, Giant Grit, Rico, who am I forgetting here? Capiche is a good guy. He hardly posts, but pay attention to him. What was interesting was that Ricky guy that appeared, 213, who looked like he knew stuff, but then started getting things wrong. I'm really curious watching that guy. I think that guy's a bit of I think he knows some stuff, but I think he self-promotes because he's got that Twitter thing. But had quite a following on Twitter from non-Giants fans as well. There are a lot of other people out there, but those are the ones that when they say something, I usually go,
Now I won't put you on the spot, but you also have people who tell you things that you can't share, and they don't.
Oh, God, yes.
But they give you kind of heads up on things. So here's what I'm going to say to that. Has anybody said to you that you can't say who it was, or even specifics what they said? Just that there's concern that there's fractures inside the building, starting from last year with Daboll and Martindale.
No. I only generally hear stuff. And I don't know why it is. All right, I will tell this. The one guy that I used to hear stuff all the time from, and he actually just donated to the site again. He's still around. He just doesn't post. Is someone on the inside. So,
Saudi,
yeah, he's still around. So I responded to him and thanked him because he's a good dude. I've met him in person, and he's a good dude, and he's the real deal. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
But he got tired of getting the abuse, and I don't blame the guys that have been on the site before and have posted, and people say they're full of shit. Look, this is a hard thing. It's kind of like the thing with the trade up with May with May. The people that reported on
that the Giants were trying to trade up with May were right. They were.
Yeah.
And but because it didn't happen, people said you're full of shit. So where the real, where they kind of some of them caused trouble for themselves is where they said it was a done deal. So a couple of them said, this is going to happen. So that was, obviously not, unless something happened, it was really close. I don't think it was. I think based on what we know now, I don't think the Patriots were ever intending to trade that pick. But I generally hear things in the offseason more for some reason now.
Yeah.
And there are times where it's like, and I don't know why they tell me. It's great that they do, but they say don't tell anyone, and I don't. The only thing I did kind of hint at, and the guy could have gotten pissed off at me, was the Brian Burns thing. I was told Brian Burns was happening about a week before it happened, or 5 days. I don't remember the exact time.
Yeah,
I was told the Brian Burns thing was happening, and I was like, I want to say something. I
know, right? Like,
I can't say anything. So, and the craziest offseason was that one offseason that Plaxico came, because we had a bunch of people coming,
2005.
Antonio Pierce and Plaxico. There were people
LeVar
saying
Arrington,
Plaxico
people forget
was,
that.
because I don't even people remember Plaxico arrived and left. And so it didn't look like he was going to sign with the Giants, but then he came back. So we had people saying he's at the hospital getting a physical. We had somebody who worked at that hospital or saying things like that. So yeah,
that was fun. Though that was that
offseason was
days.
fantastic.
Yeah, there was a few days where you had him, McKenzie, LeVar Arrington. I mean, all this stuff was going on, and it's like, I was like, oh my God, because we had Eli. We didn't win a lot of games the year before, but you knew you had your guy we were building around. That's
and we had that gloved one character.
Oh yeah,
who came out of nowhere, predicted the trade down to a T, and even said, Eli would come out on stage not wearing the hat, the Charger hat, and the whole thing. And then he emails me after that and says, delete my account. I was like, who the hell was that? Was like one of the was that Papa Manning there, or was that an agent? I don't know who that.
Right. Then we had the fake glove ones that popped up.
Then we had a fake glove one. So but I will say this: they did have us spinning a little bit this year. The obvious pick all along was Neighbors, and they had us talking about everybody but Neighbors. So in a way, maybe they're getting better guarding their secrets here. So all right. So before we move on to the Commanders. I don't think we can answer all these tonight. From the time, we've talked about this before. From the time from the Jones extension until now, who out of the possible quarterbacks via free agency or the draft could the Giants have pivoted to? And that's a great question. And the problem is, and I've talked about this before, and this is where I get into fights with Go Terps and others, is there haven't been a lot of this is quarterback hell when you need a quarterback. So your question is, since they signed the contract, okay? So if you signed your quarterback to a $160 million deal in an offseason, you're not going to draft a new quarterback because you just needed $160 million. So when is the first time, based on your question, when is the first time you're going to look for a quarterback? It's the following year, this offseason, when he imploded. So again, that gets back to the draft this past year, and that's been debated. The top three quarterbacks were off the board. So do you get McCarthy, who's out for the year, Nix, or Penix? And we've discussed this already. I personally understand not going for a quarterback who you're not convinced can be the guy, because that's how we ended up with Daniel Jones. The ultimate thing here is going to be, how is Nix, Penix, and McCarthy 5 years from now? If they're great top 10 quarterbacks, the Giants look like idiots. If not, then they made the right decision. But to answer your question, there weren't a lot of quarterbacks. So and then we talked about the draft class that Purdy was in, and that was before. You got to remember, your question is since the contract was signed. So in free agency, the only thing I actually looked, because of this question, I actually looked back on the free agents that were available this offseason. It wasn't good.
No.
So the question is, who's going to take you to the promised land when you look at the quarterbacks? And there are guys that are better, because Daniel Jones is garbage now. There are guys that are clearly better than Daniel Jones. But were they going to get you the playoffs and win playoff games. Most of them probably not. The only ones that you could have swung for the fences on were Sam Darnold, because the talent level. Because we saw it against the Giants. He has talent. The question is does he have the consistency? And John and I got in an argument about this last time. Is the other guy who falls in that category is, do you give up a late pick for Justin Fields? But the other quarterbacks, look at those guys, and you're like, they couldn't spend a fortune on a free agent either because of the Daniel Jones contract. So we're talking about guys that they're either still on their rookie deal that you trade for, or you're talking about a cheap veteran like Sam Darnold was. I mean, maybe there's another quarterback you'd throw in there, but
No, actually, I don't. Quite frankly, the question is in such a way, the time frame is so limiting
hey, that's exactly it. It's too
that
limited.
Go Terps has a point from a while back, and I agree with it now looking back on it. And even then I kind of thought they might do it. Is in 2020 we should have drafted Justin Herbert. He was still there when we were drafting, and just because we had Daniel Jones, we should have been the Cardinals who said, we have Rosen, but you know what? This guy, Kyler Murray, is better. We should have done the same thing. We have Herbert, because we could have traded Jones at that point based on his rookie year to another team. We would have gotten some picks back for him. It might not have been a first rounder, but we certainly could have gotten probably a second, at least a third for sure, off his rookie year. He threw 24 touchdowns as a rookie on a bad team. So if we draft Herbert and then moved on from Jones, or let them battle it out, who cares? Let Jones be the backup. We have 2 number 1 quarterbacks. You know who did 2 number 1 quarterbacks a number of years ago? The Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys had Troy Aikman, and then they took Steve Walsh in the supplemental draft. They made sure they were set. We could have done that there. But once Jones signed the contract and they made the playoffs, I don't want to hear from anybody else knocking, yeah, they made the playoffs. Yeah, they beat the Vikings, and the Vikings are crap. We made the playoffs. That's what your goal is to get to the playoffs. The championship only happens if you can make it to the playoffs. You can't tell the coach of the year to go get rid of your quarterback, start all over again, because now we can't go and get some other stuff because we're getting another quarterback. We're gonna lose Barkley as well at that point in time. So we signed Jones. You got him. Now you got to stick with him. But who knew that he was going to get, the offensive line was going to fall apart and he was going to get hurt immediately? You kind of thought we would get 22 all over again, and we didn't.
Right.
So since then, there really hasn't been any options. The draft, we should have taken somebody, but later maybe, but those are guys you're not counting on anyway. And I think that's what the Giants looked at. They're like, what if we take Pratt, or what if we take Rattler? Are they really more ready to play than DeVito is right now? I would say probably not. DeVito played in the league last year. These guys, you have no idea. So they wrote it one more for that one more year that the money is all kind of tied up. That's what they were counting on, and so far it's not working out.
And the problem I have with anything before 2022 is it was a different regime. So we know Gettleman didn't know what he was doing, and we know. So I mean, I understand the point. And are you saying the Giants really screwed up by drafting Jones and then not drafting somebody else when they realized it was a problem before 2022? Sure, but those guys are gone. So so I understand but I think that's frustration talk. So like for instance, so the 2022 draft, there were 9 quarterbacks taken: Pickett, Ritter, Willis, Coral, Zapp, Howe, Skylar Thompson, and Purdy. And we've talked about this before.
And only Purdy's the only one who's on the same team that drafted him, I believe. I think the rest have all moved on.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's like I've talked about this before. That draft was a disaster for quarterbacks. And then when you sign, again, for better or worse, he said, look, we talked about it on Monday. The Jones contract is going to kill this regime. And but they did it. And once you did that, then that took quarterback off the draft. That took quarterback off the table for the 2023 draft.
Right.
And now then the 2024 we've already discussed. So we have a bunch of questions, but we're moving on late here. So should we pivot to the Commanders and or do you want to do more questions? We can do both, but we're running late again. So
Yeah, we should probably we could do a couple more and then
Okay.
we'll hit because the commander piece, I think we can keep it pretty tight.
Okay.
And then
Oh.
we'll take a small break at the end of the couple questions just so we can get Carly's picks in, her hot NFL picks for this week. For the 5 ones that she's going with. Stella did all right. She did 3 and 2 last week, but we're gonna go with a human operator this time and one a little bit prettier.
Okay. Dareborn, 2 things. What gives our coach any hope that Daniel can flip the script on this? I I don't know. What is he seeing that we're not seeing? I don't know. Is there anything that we just are missing as fans? The only thing I will say with that is what I said on Monday again too, is my frustration level is that as fans, we are supposed to trust the experts, that they know what they're doing, and because they're close, they're hired to do this. We're the fans. They're the people that are supposed to be the best people on the planet to run a football team. I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense to me, and that's why I think they're in danger. I don't know what they're seeing. I don't know why they think they do. I mean, the argument is, well, they must know something. But I don't know what it is at this point, because I mean, it is what it is. It's 6 years. We're at year 6 right now, and that was arguably one of his worst games. I can't tell you how important that game was on Sunday for him in this franchise. It was, and he just laid an egg. So we talked about the preview where I made that foolish prediction the Giants might be competitive, and I said, because I thought Daniel Jones might be able to work at an acceptable level.
Sure.
And part of this was me going, well, the coaches must see something. They must know something. There must be something there, or they wouldn't be staking their future to him, because that's what they're doing. So they must know something. And then Sunday happens, and they don't know what they're doing. That's where I'm at right now. They don't. What are we doing? If they're the experts, they're not good at it. I mean, I've used this analogy before. If you've got a leak in your house and you hire a plumber and he can't fix it, you get a new plumber. I mean, and that's kind of where I am right now with this, is like, what are we doing? And the answer is going to be, well, DeVito and Locke are worse, maybe, but I have no hope with Daniel Jones at this point. I don't. And I think everybody's given up on him. I mean, whether you like the guy or not, he's in a terrible situation right now. The odds are that they don't have any quarterback whatsoever. But I want to go into, if they played Locke or DeVito on Sunday, I'd have more interest in the game. Now at the end of the game, I might be like, Jesus Christ, we don't have any quarterback, but at least there was something to look forward to.
Sure.
I don't have anything to look forward to right now. Anyways.
Yeah, so I don't know if you use the analogy about the plumber. If you haven't seen this movie, you won't understand what I'm about to say. But there's a really bad movie called Samurai Cop.
It's great.
There's a
Oh,
scene.
I love Samurai Cop.
There's a scene in this hospital where there's this guy who's supposed to be the policeman guarding the room. They leave.
Highly recommend Samurai Cop.
They leave the guy guarding the room. He leaves, he walks away, he comes back and finds the guy he's supposed to be guarding has now had his head cut off and there's blood everywhere. He comes out of the room and yells, "Dead security." I hate to tell you this, Steve, but you were security. That's the problem right there. And that's the problem I have with Dayball at this moment. When you do these things, it's like, I think it was BW who brought up, because I said, God, they must see something in practice that gave them a hint that this is kind of what they'd be dealing with. And you know what? He might be right. Maybe they don't. And the reason why they don't, the Giants defense in practice is not intentionally trying to disguise what they're doing. They're not trying to trick Daniel Jones, who, by the way, knows the Giants defense. So he knows kind of what they're going to do in practice. It's in the games. It's in the live games when the other team is trying to hit you. And I'm beginning to wonder, that second neck injury, the one in Miami, that seemed very mysterious when he got hit from behind, the way that it caused that again. If he's not so gun shy now that he doesn't trust anything, his throws are so horrible, the Giants have to see this. And I think after this last game, you couldn't have walked away from that going, this is our guy. He just needs some time.
Well, it could be exactly what you're talking about, or it could be what I talked about before, the mental pressure. There is so much pressure on him right now. And most people couldn't deal with it. I probably wouldn't be able to deal with it. Most of us wouldn't be able to deal with the pressure he's under right now. But again, he's being paid to deal with that pressure. People are going to say, boo-hoo. I get it. But the pressure messes with your head. And he's under we talked about on Monday too. He's walking to his car and people are booing.
Yeah, that was awful. That was awful. And I'll say this,
again, the Seinfeld reference. It's like we're following somebody to work and booing them at their work. Boo!
And I'll say this because it came up on Twitter. They interviewed Jones in the locker room. I think it was today, asking him about the boos and the pressure and that. And he's like, I know I didn't play well. And they were talking about how he handles it. And here's my problem, right? You can handle stuff like that well, and that's great until the stuff like that is all the time. Then you handling it means to me, you're just so accustomed to it. You're like, I know. No, I don't want to hear any more about how good you are about taking the boos because you played like shit. Stop playing like that so you don't hear the boos. I just think we're past that point. And I
will say this, and again, I know people go, oh, Christ, it's like my kids when they hear old timer stories. You and I talk about the old Giants all the time. Phil Simms went through this, and when Phil Simms was asked these types of questions, he got a little pissed off.
Right.
He got a little irritated. I think I'm a pretty darn good quarterback, and he would push back on some of that, and one of the things that fans who might be too young to remember Phil Simms was much more passionate quarterback than Eli Manning was, both in and on the field and in the locker room. He was, Eli would make a good, I think he would make a good poker player, but he just kept, he was even keel.
Right.
Phil was more a little bit of a roller coaster, and
he was very demonstrative on the field.
Yes, he was. Yeah. When especially when he scored a touchdown and stuff. That's why
I'd love to get Phil back on the show because he's just one of my favorite of all time. He may be my favorite. I'd have to think about that long and hard. But let's go to another question here because we're rambling. Wait a minute, I just lost the questions. Sean. Most here seem to have accepted that Shane and Dable are likely to be fired, if not both, at least one. Do you have faith that they'll return this around? I think we answered this, so I think we're good on that one. When the head coach gets fired, well, this was one I didn't know the answer to. When the head coach gets fired, does the financial commitment cease immediately? And if it does not, Judge is still on the books. I think most of the times when a coach is fired, they still have to get paid.
Correct. So their money goes for the length of the contract.
Yeah, I believe that. So he's asking how many of our coaches are still under contract, and I don't know the answer to that.
I would think only Judge would have been, just because I don't think any of our coaches signed more than like 3-4 year deals.
I don't know the answer though.
We didn't sign anybody to a 5, 6, 7 year deal.
I don't think so, but I'm not going to say that I know the answer. I just don't know.
I would think Judge is still on the books though.
Yeah. He just sells more Pepsis if he needs more money. Of course, he might not if people don't show up to stand. Opening the season, does it appear to you that the Giants have done a piss poor task of preparing the team for the season opener the last 2 years? This was Bob C. I know no one wants injuries in the preseason, but the new defense, new offensive line, new offensive play calling should necessitate a little bit more preseason games. Yeah, I think we've talked about this too, not tonight, but I think we all agree. I think everyone agrees that the team needed to practice more with the first team. I think they did this year. I think the joint practices are going to replace league-wide, are going to replace the preseason games more and more.
Yeah, I agree.
To be honest with you, Bob, I think the big problem with the opener was Daniel Jones. And if you want to blame coaching, Babel basically admitted they were out-coached, and the opposition bragged about out-coaching them. So I don't think it was a preparation thing. Preparation in the sense, I think they were ready for the physical side of the game. I don't think they were ready mentally, but I don't think that was on the practice this year. Last year, yes, but and John maybe disagree with me, but I don't think it was it might have been an issue in the sense of this, that Jones may have needed more practice time in the preseason just to get in sync with his wide receivers. But the offensive line issues were injury related. I mean, that was the problem. Schmitz was hurt and Runyon was hurt. It wasn't that Andrew Thomas was superb on Sunday. It wasn't, if you're good, you don't like Andrew Thomas or Dexter Lawrence, you notice how they played really well because they're good.
Right.
So I think the problem on Sunday was the quarterback, and then the defensively, I think our edge rushers didn't get there, but that's my take.
Well, the last 3 opening games, Dayball's been the head coach. We were behind early in Tennessee, but we stuck with it. Jones made some plays. He was hitting his guys. There was an interception in the end zone that he may have want to have that one back, but we were making plays. We stayed in the game. The Dallas game was a little different. It became a snowball. We made plays to move down the field early on. Have that bad thing we talked about this bad thing with a field goal. Boom, block. Thomas pulls his hamstring. They score a touchdown. Then Jones throws a pass to Barkley. It goes right through Barkley's hands. People keep kind of forgetting that one. That Barkley just let it go right through his hands, intercept, and now that was a snowball from there.
Right.
And then we had Sterling Shepard, who scored a touchdown in game 1, tears his knee up just running down the field. Just all of a sudden, down he goes. He's done. So this game, to me, and you don't use the term. Well, we as fans use it more often than players use it, and they kind of deny it when it happens. They were flat. This was flat for a team with all the stuff that we had going on. The 100-year celebration all weekend long. It's almost like it was the last shot of a Roman candle. Like we shot our wad on Friday and Saturday. The game came around. There was no energy left. The second that things didn't work out on that first drive, then we got the ball back immediately and we didn't score a touchdown and we let them score.
Right, but the defense is fired up. Remember, they come out and they get a turnover.
But is it fired up though? I mean, you got a turnover. It wasn't. We had 1 sack. And we tackled the guy in the open field and he dropped the ball.
Well, no, we forced the fumble. We got the ball back, though.
We tackled the guy in the open.
Everything right at that point is like, okay,
I understand
the offense was horrible to start the game, but the defense came up, the crowd's in it, and then we don't get a score.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is like we got the ball back, and then we didn't score. Then from there was no energy. I mean, it was just kind of like,
is there no energy because it's what we talked about on Monday? Is there no energy because the unrest in the stands because of these awful passes?
I think that I'm talking about the energy
filtering down to the players at that point.
That's a solid question. I actually think it's more on the field. During the summer when they played the Texans and we had Sion and I said, I feel like Jones is very mechanical. Nothing seems natural. It's like
he's not natural at all. He's like, no, yeah.
And I feel like what we're doing on both sides of the ball is mechanical. There's a down and distance, so we're going to do this. We think they're going to do that, so we'll put this lineup out there. It's not like we have this feel, this sense of who we are, this energy that flows. Like the Chiefs. The Chiefs when they get going. They're just gonna they got everybody's involved, stuff's happening, they're moving. Even the Ravens, when they want to do stuff, it's all kind of churning, it's going. The 49ers did it on Monday night. Look at what they did. Once they get going, all their stuff is moving.
But it's funny how talent will do that.
I know where you're going with that.
So talent and confidence, that's two things. So it's those teams not only have talent, but they believe in themselves. The Giants have some talent, but they don't believe.
I don't think anybody believes in Jones. I don't think anybody believes in Jones.
So when you believe, and again, so you said it early in this thing, losing has a stink. So you kind of start to expect, and the fans did that. So we've all been to football games. You can hear what's going on in the stadium, and you can hear, and the players can hear that. So it's mumble, mumble, mumble. Some boos already coming out because the offense went 3 and out, and they get the ball, get the ball at the 20, and they only get a field goal, and then it just every time they're on there, something happens. There's a penalty, a drop pass. Daniel Jones is making a bad play, and they're just waiting. They want to be excited. So I hear what you're saying about the flat. I'm not completely discounting it, but I think the team is ready to stay excited. But they have to do something on the field that keeps them excited, and it's like I said today, what do you think the reaction was by all the players on that team when Daniel threw that pick six? I mean,
Oh my God.
everybody must have just went, I mean, how do you not? I mean, that you just had the air just goes completely out of you at that point. It's like, and that's why
If it didn't, then the worst case scenario happened in that they expected that something like that was going to happen.
well, that's what I mean. So the Kansas City and the Ravens and the 49ers don't expect that to happen. They expect the opposite to happen. They think like Detroit did the other night, they're
Sure.
going to go down the field and they're going to score because that confidence that they have that confidence.
But
Remember,
but my point is though, when you start to expect that those things are happening, they tend to lose their impact on you when they do. Meaning, I kind of knew when it was going to happen. It's less deflating and more just confirmation of what I already kind of was worried about to begin with. And then it becomes too easy to accept it.
well, that's the problem when you start to accept losing. And that was one of the reasons why I don't have a problem with letting some of these better Giants players go because I think
Agreed.
they got accepted, they got used to losing. So, and if we're not careful, same thing is going to happen to Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence and other people. So,
Yep.
all right, real quick. How many wins do the Giants have? How many wins do the Giants have with Lock DeVito at the helm starting next week? Oh God, who knows? I'm going to just say I have no idea because we don't know what they have. I just know that Daniel Jones can't do it. So that's my whole thing is I want to find out. I know what Jones can and can't do. I have a pretty good idea that the other two quarterbacks can't do it either, but I want to find out. That's where I am. So the answer to your question is I want to find out.
Right. I don't know. I can't answer it either, only because I need to see this weekend. And when we're going to do that coming up here in just a sec with the I was going to say the Skins game, with the Commanders game, the Giants have to win that game. They have to win that game.
You don't have to do anything.
No.
I say that to my wife all the time, and she says something has to happen. I said nothing has to happen.
But as far as that organization goes, take the fandom out of it. So take us as fans as that. But if you're part of the Giants team, you have to win this game.
Right.
This is if this season is going to mean anything to you, you have to beat the team that you've owned for a while, who is completely revamped their roster, who has a rookie quarterback, and everybody on the team that we counted on in week one that didn't show up has to play the way they're supposed to be played, the way they're being paid. Burns is being paid a ton of money. You better be in the backfield. Thibodeaux is coming up to a contract very soon.
Well,
let's
get to that when we get to the game, though. You're getting into the game, so let's finish this up, and because I think you're going the right places, but I think you wanted to talk about that during the game,
sure.
right?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, or do you want to do it now?
No, no, you're fine. It's
because
fine.
you're talking about the game. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. For me,
the
only way that I'll know what the rest of the year would be with somebody else is what happens this weekend. If we fail this weekend, Jones can't. If he plays the whole game, he can't play another game after that. I don't think he makes it through. If he struggles, he's not making it through the game.
I hope so. I don't know. We're going to find it. This is what I mean when people are saying, what's the future of Dable and Shane? We're going to find out.
Right.
I accidentally skipped a couple here. If Jones is benched at some point and Locke starts, how much rope will the Giants give him before they go into DeVito? Another excellent question. I have no clue. I have no clue. I will say this. Locke probably has more arm talent. All right, I'm pretty sure he has more arm talent, but that preseason play didn't leave a good taste in my mouth. And if he does more of that, I would rather just get a good read on DeVito once and for all. If you're going to keep DeVito as third quarterback, if you're going to waste a 53-man roster spot on DeVito, there's the only one reason that have done that is that you believe that he might have some ability either as a backup or a starter in this league, or else why do you keep him? I mean, you can say, well, he's insurance because quarterbacks keep getting hurt. But if you're down to your third quarterback and you don't think your third quarterback's any good, you're not going to win anyway. So I don't see, I'd rather go with a practice squad guy like that Nathan O'Rourke or something at that point. So if Locke came in and if Locke played like Sam Darnold did, you're like,
And that gets back to the earlier question. If he played like Sam Darnold did against the Giants certainly could get back into the playoff hunt. But you better start him sooner. But if Sam Locke or if Locke does poorly, I would move on to DeVito pretty quickly. And just because I want to get a read on these guys. I mean,
And
is DeVito's the only guy under contract if you assume Daniel Jones is gone next year?
true. I wouldn't be so concerned with who the backup is right now per se. In a game situation, if Jones gets injured in the game and you had to bring somebody in, Locke is the more physically comparable player where the game plan you already have in place, you can continue to do. However, if it's going to be long term, I'm not so sure that DeVito's not the guy that they ultimately would give the ball to instead of Locke, because he's the guy I think that can run their offense more efficiently than Locke is the guy that you could throw the ball down the field. He's got a good arm. He could throw the ball down the field. You just worry about some of the other stuff because he doesn't always play very smart. DeVito's plays smart, but he does take some sacks, but you're losing a lot on the deep pass. You're not going to be able to use that as much.
But yeah, I know you've said that before, and I agree with you. His arm's not similar, but he did throw deep last year. What I found interesting last year was this. Tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't Taylor get healthy at one point when he got hurt, and then he come back, but they stuck with DeVito even Taylor was ready to come back, and then when DeVito bombed, they went back to Taylor.
For a little while, yeah, they did, yeah, because he beat Green Bay. I mean,
so they wanted to get so they did that last year. I could see them skipping over. I won't count on it. I wouldn't bet on it, but I could see them skipping over Locke and going to DeVito if they really want. I mean, they could do that too. So it's a good question, but your guess is as good as ours.
Sure.
So, I think I skipped. Maybe we do this when we do the preview.
Yeah.
Why do the Giants historically since the 80s play well against the Redskins, Washington football team, Commanders? We'll do that when we do the thing.
Yep.
And then there's only two more left. Any chance Jones' game one performance was an aberration? Oh, yeah.
Well, there's always a chance.
So you say there's a chance. There's a chance. What is that, Dumb and Dumber?
Oh my God, I need that. I need that there.
Yeah, you should drop that in.
Telling me there's a chance.
They're telling me there's a chance. Yeah,
I
think
you.
that's our answer.
Yeah.
I mean that's our answer. There's always. I mean, I think at this point, I think only the bitter clingers are.
If it was just bad passes, if it was just like interceptions, gambling and taking chances, then I would say maybe. The passes were in the ground. He just wasn't throwing to guys when they were open. I mean, he just literally looked like a guy who got into a shell. The one time he ripped it was the pass that he kind of threw over the DB that Neighbors goes up and gets, and that was great. Other times he just flat out missed people so badly that you can't. He just looks really lost back there.
And this was King Blue's question. And I will say this to King Blue. King Blue, if we're wrong in a month, I pray you are. I hope you are, because we need this. I will be the first to say, I was wrong, but geez, I mean, that was bad. I mean, and it's been bad, and that's the problem is that was so important for him to come out and do well on Sunday for a variety of reasons, and he did the one thing we didn't want to see. He played one of his worst games, and now I will say this: if he comes out and does like he normally does against the Commanders and has one of his better games, people better not automatically assume again where he's headed in the right direction. Again, he's got to string some games together.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
He will get So and then lastly, Arnie Fez, he has two questions. If the Giants are 0-3 and Daniel Jones is going to start Game 4 at home Thursday. Oh, this is the nightmare scenario I was talking about. At what point during the game, which quarter, will there be more? Yeah, this is actually what I didn't see.
Kickoff.
I would say this. I didn't see this question earlier. No, he's thinking like I am. The question is are there more fans in the stadium? But when the game starts, so if they're 0-3. we may have more there
We'd
was
be Cowboy
the
fans.
Cowboys a few years ago where I think there were more Cowboy fans in the stands than there were Giants fans to start that game.
That's
And
been a trend for a long time, though, because you get like the Moose chant back in the 90s. I hated that so much. I'm like, come on, man. Like, but we've been owned by them. So, yeah, if we're 0-3 going into that game and we've looked
Yeah.
pretty pathetic, it's
Well,
going
I'm
to be
gonna
full of
throw
Cowboys
something
fans.
out here that might piss some people off too, and I know he's not watching because he won't watch this because it's not about the Cowboys. But my neighbor, who I'm very good friends with, is one of those New Jersey Yankee Cowboy fans. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. So he's one of those guys. So he's one of those guys who grew up in New Jersey. His father was a diehard Giants fan, but he grew up a Cowboys fan and he likes the Yankees. And I'm not going to say something that's going to get the Yankee fans off, but if you know the type, you know the type. And those guys are the ones that tend to go to the stadium. Those are the guys that tend to be in the stadium
Right.
at MetLife, and I can't even imagine being there around those people. I'd be so pissed off. That's why there's a variety of reasons I don't go to games anymore. Number one, I'm not in the area. Number two, I've got to run the website. But I'm not good in those situations. I get pissed off. I'm not.
I don't like being around when that stuff
And my
happens.
wife is too. People that were there, my wife went to a preseason game with me at Ravens and against the Ravens years ago, and some drunk Ravens fan. It was a preseason game, and they scored on the last play of the game. And some drunk Raven fans came up and started screaming at us. And my wife was the one who almost started the fight. She was like,
Nice.
they had to separate them. Of course, all us guys are going like, damn,
Nice.
she's the one who's getting into the fight.
Nice.
All right. Lastly, question 2, is there any precedent for firing a head coach early in the season and replacing him with someone not currently on a coaching staff? I don't know anyone who's ever done that, but I won't say it's never been done. But
most recently, I think the team, and it wasn't early in the season; it was later. Was the Colts when they went and took Jeff Saturday off the the freaking sidelines, basically just a guy who used to play for them and made him.
But he was associated with the team.
Yeah, but he wasn't coaching with them.
You're right. That's actually the only one I can. Yeah, and I didn't think of that one. So yeah,
would be. There's no. I
don't understand how you do that. I mean, I
don't think there'd be anything gained from it. You do it if you feel like you've got a lot of pieces in place and this coach is just failing it horribly and we're planning for next year. So we're just going to get rid of you now. So we got time so we can immediately start the coaching search. But if the Giants aren't sure that they're going to get rid of Daboll, there's no way he's getting fired early.
Well, remember the time they made Spags the interim coach too? So they wanted to kind of get a read on him. So if there was somebody on the staff that they thought really high, like if they were really into Kafka, or I don't know why they'd be really into Bowen because they don't know him yet. But if they were really into Kafka, maybe. But that's not the question. The question is, somebody not even
outside. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're not gonna. They wouldn't know any of what you're doing. What would be the point of doing it?
This is, and then we move on quickly.
Yeah.
This is the problem that I was getting at with the PR component is. And when I talked about on Monday, the Giants have done the impossible. They have got Giants fans realizing, or almost they're coming to terms with, the season's over and it hasn't even started. It just started. I mean, that's the problem. I may look like an asshole. Whoops, I'm not supposed to swear. A month from now, if they're somehow 3-1, I don't think that's going to happen.
But, I mean, even 3-4.
You're like, hey,
anything
around
not
500 would be great. If they could get, if we can play 500 football the whole season, if we could stick around 500, I'd be happy. I mean, that's because I said all along the Giants were going to be somewhere around 500 this year, get plus or minus 2 games in either direction. I shouldn't say happy, but that's what I expected.
Right.
But the problem is based on the way Daniel Jones just played, I don't even see that now. So Sunday shocked me from this sense. Daniel's gotten worse. I've seen a lot of people out there saying he was never good. And you can say that now probably, but
that's a relative term.
There were times he wasn't this bad. I mean, that was bad.
He threw 24 touchdowns in a season. That's not bad
he went
on
to
a bad team.
And he took a team devoid of talent to the playoffs.
He scored 22 touchdowns in 22, 15 passing, 7 rushing. He's not great by any sense of the imagination. What happened the other day, though, says he's not even capable of being a backup if he plays like that.
He's broken. Again, we talked about that. He's broke. Some people got mad at me because I used the word broken because it implied that he wasn't broken at some point. And again, I'm not saying Daniel Jones ever could have.
You're talking mentally broken.
I don't know what version of broken. It could be mentally, it could be physically, like you're alluding to. It could be both. It could be, I don't know what it is, but again, when you're throwing, again, we were talking about he's aiming passes, he's throwing balls into the dirt, he's not throwing the football down the field. The confidence isn't there. Again, even when Brandon Jacobs is tweeting out stuff like, "Hey, you got to have his back,"
yeah,
he's picking up on something. Brandon Jacobs has got contacts with this team. I assume he's heard something. I mean, Sean O'Hara still works there. Maybe Sean O'Hara told him something like that.
Yeah.
Or who knows? Or Eli works there, so maybe he said something. But what I'm saying is, he's getting worse. He's not getting better. This is the worst possible outcome. So anyway, let's move on to the Commanders.
Let's keep
this brief. So
I'll say this for the Commanders, and a reason why this is going to be unbelievably telling for him. Daniel Jones in his career has 22 wins. 5 of those are against the Commanders.
I didn't even know it was that good. Okay.
So he's 5-1-1 in 7 games against the Commanders. So I mean, take the tie, which we shouldn't have tied in that game. He's essentially 6-1 against the Commanders.
He owns the Commanders. He owns them.
He has a 10-3 touchdown interception ratio against the Commanders. He's thrown for 1,510 yards in those 7 total games, 324 rushing yards and another touchdown. However, we also beat them with I believe Tyrod played the game that we won in October. Did DeVito beat them the second time? I think we beat them both times. I can't remember now. Looking back on it.
God!
But either way,
we
have beaten. Daniel has beaten Washington. He has won those games.
And he hasn't looked bad. And he hasn't looked bad in them.
His second start of his career was he played Tampa first. It was Washington the next week. They beat Washington then. That's when you start to get, oh my gosh, Jones is going to be something. This is his team. If he's going to play well, and it doesn't matter that they've changed out because they've changed other things during a couple of years. If he plays well, this is the game he's going to do it. If he struggles right from the get-go, this is when you know, and I think the Giants will know that they're done. They can't go any further because this is the team that he beats. And they're not that good. They're very weak in the secondary. They're very weak up front. They've changed out a ton of people. They got a rookie quarterback, 1 wide receiver, and a guy who was a great tight end 6 years ago.
Right.
We should win this game. We should play well if we're going to play to our ability, and Daniel should be part of it.
Everything you said is 100% correct. I'm not disagreeing with any of it.
Sure.
No, you think I'm going to say something, but no, I'm not going to say a but.
No.
So if he loses this game, and they stick with him, and we go into Cleveland and we stick with him and we go into that Sunday night game, that's what I'm afraid of. So,
if he struggles, I don't think he makes it past halftime. If he struggles, he doesn't make it past halftime.
All right. So the Commanders are kind of the over the hill bunch version 2, but worse because they're totally rebuilding. I agree with you. First of all, let's talk about very quickly on the other side of the ball. I think if they keep Jaden Daniels from scrambling, they should be all right. But Jaden Daniels is very, very, very dangerous scrambling. But they've got to. People are going to get mad at me at this. I think Thibodeaux and Burns could really eat up the Commanders' tackles. However, they have to be very, very disciplined that they don't let Jaden Daniels get past them. So they have to be very disciplined with their pass rush. And in a way that hurts their ability to rush the passer. So what I'm saying is they can't just wildly fly up the field, because if they do, Jaden's going to take off, and he can run for an 80-yard touchdown. So what I'm saying is I told Giants fans to be a little bit wary against the Vikings because their tackles are so good. I'm going to tell you, be a little bit wary that Brian Burns and Thibodeaux, they have to be careful here because they can't let Jaden get around them. And if he does, then there could be trouble. And the same thing with the inside guys. I'd be interested to see if they spy him or not, because again, he likes
Yeah.
to play more coverage. So I think if they keep Jaden Daniels from beating them on the ground, they'll be all right in this game defensively. If they're not, then we're in for a long season. Because like you said, they don't have a lot of they have McLaurin, but they don't have a lot of weapons. So to me, it's controlling the Russian. On the other side, so if you're Brian Dable, I'll ask you this: if you're Brian Dable, do you come into this game and do you put the ball in Daniel Jones's hands, or do you run the football to start this game? And what do you do?
I think you come out and you throw. You have to, because if
Or you don't
don't
have to.
no,
don't
you have to. You absolutely have to.
Okay,
Because
why?
because if you come out, so let's say, and they've done this, right? You come out on first down, and Washington knows we struggled horribly the week before.
Yeah.
You come out in a heavy set, and you run, and you get
Well, you only have to be heavy.
okay. Even if you don't,
Okay.
you get 2 yards,
Okay.
get a yard. 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. Now what? You're going to run again, or now you're forced.
Well, that's
to
what I'm
throw?
asking you. I
So
mean,
you throw. I want to throw on first down. You've got to come out throwing right away. You've got to spread them out a little bit, and you've got to call plays that are designed to be quick in nature. You either throw it or you're running it early just to get some first downs. We just need to. You've got to get some momentum, because if you stop right off, if we run the first down and you try to throw in a second down and it's a bad pass or he gets sacked or whatever, you can
right.
it's like flushing the toilet. The offense will start going spinning around the bowl until it's done. You can't do that. Make a nice easy throw on the first down. You got to let him throw the ball, because if you can't, then he shouldn't be on the field.
You do the same thing that I get on my wife about, speaking in absolutes. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but when you say they have to, they must, they don't have to do it. They don't have to do anything. I know what you're
I see what you're saying.
I'm saying they don't have to do that though. I'm not arguing for one or the other. I was just curious because
what would you do?
Well, this is the problem. Daniel's confidence is shaken right now. It really is. So your way might be the right way, because again, you're going to find out. And this is what Go Terps wants. Let's find out. Let's prove to everybody. Well, knows.
You have to.
But he wants
he wants them to prove what he already knows. I got it.
See. So in a way, that might be the right thing. But if you have a quarterback that's a little bit, his confidence is shot, you might want to settle everything down. Now the problem is this: they kind of tried to do that, I think, against the Vikings a little bit, or either he checked down, I don't know what, but they didn't throw the ball down the field. You and I talked about this. Was it Daniel not pulling the trigger, throwing down the field? But when he did throw short, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And if he does that again, so that's the other thing is, so if you do throw short, is he going to replicate what he did against the Vikings and not? If he throws balls into the ground again or behind the wide receivers, it's again, I know what the Commanders are going to do. They're going to do what the Vikings did, and they're going to say, Daniel, we're going to make you beat us, and they're going to be like every other team. They're going to laugh. They're going to say until you, and everyone thinks I'm being mean, but Daniel's, and I keep saying this, Daniel's the only one who can stop this.
Right.
Daniel's the only one who can make this stop and get off this nightmare roller coaster he's on by making the other teams, stop laughing at him. And so far, he's just being a little, and he's letting them do, whatever they want.
He's,
anyway,
we've become very passive in everything that we do. I want to be clear. I don't care how well he ultimately does. I still want a different quarterback when this season's over. And there are a number in the draft, and the first one is Beck. I don't know if we can get back, but Cam Ward is my second one. And those two guys right now, that's kind of where Ewers is up there too. Keep an eye on him. I like him. He seems he plays very well. And Alar, he could jump his way, but that's a whole different show. I still think Daniel can play better, but what you've got to do is you've got to dictate terms to the other team. If you become passive, now you're thinking. Now you're worried. And when you're passive, you're playing afraid. Daboll played afraid right from the get-go against the Vikings by saying we thought they would do this, so we were trying to protect. That's what they were doing. I'm trying to protect Jones. You spent money on that offensive line.
But did he do that? The only indication that we really had that he did that were those stupid runs, which might have been.
No, we went large all the.
Those quarterback runs.
We went two tight ends a lot.
Well, but that's because he thought they remember. That's
my point.
Thought they were going to attack him.
Right.
He didn't do that because he was thinking. He didn't do that because he didn't want to throw the football. He did that because he wanted to throw the football and he thought they were going to blitz him.
That's my point.
The only part I had problems with were those stupid quarterback runs. Like you said, they weren't even RPOs. They were like these power run kind of things.
Right.
I don't know what the hell that was. What we don't know still is, did they try to push the ball down the field, and did Daniel just check off of everything and come off of everything deep? That's what we don't know. My gut tells me Daniel did that, but I don't know that. So that's where.
So this is where I'm going to disagree. Did the Giants of Eli Manning, when they knew they were going to be rushed, suddenly just bring in a bunch of tight ends because we're going to need to block everybody and we're only going to have the 2 wide receivers running out? No. We still played with our basic lineup that we would use.
Didn't they do max protect at times with Odell Beckham, though? I mean, and
max protect, we kept the back in. We didn't go 2 tight ends and go jumbo and limit our attack, our receivers.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you that the coaching screwed up. What I'm just saying is I'm not sure that they were being as conservative as you think they were. I don't know.
Again, I disagree because we did it right from the get-go.
Because he expected them to come after him from the get-go, though.
So you're afraid already. You haven't even played.
I wouldn't say afraid. It's again, if you think the other team. All right, so Flores has a history of, again, he has the highest blitz rate other than Wink Martindale.
I understand that.
Last year. So their thing was, we want to now. Again, I sound like I'm defending him. I'm explaining this because there is a rationale behind it. If you think they're going to bring the house at you, you want to give Malik Neighbors a chance down the field to connect on that. So I don't have a problem doing that if that's what they were doing.
But that only matters.
What they were doing, though. That's what.
But that only matters if I know I'm throwing deep on that down.
We're talking. Maybe they were. That's why I say I don't know.
But we're talking first down, first drive, first time with the ball on the field. They're not going to bring the house. They don't even know if you're going to run or pass. But when you go big, you've now limited your ability to pass, and you either are running.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So that's what you're doing it afraid right from first down.
But and Daboll again said he screwed up. He didn't say I screwed up, but he said he basically admitted it. He said they did something I didn't expect them to do. I mean, it was refreshing.
Which kind of scares me.
It was refreshingly honest.
But you can change though. Do you get the feeling he's a good in-game adjuster? I don't. I kind of feel like whatever we decided we were going to do coming in, that's kind of what we stick with.
I don't know. This is a cop-out. I don't know because I don't think we've got a quarterback. So I don't know. I don't know.
Fair point.
I don't know.
Fair
don't
point.
know. There's a game, and we talked about this on Monday too. The narrative is going to shift very quickly, and it's already done, that Josh Allen made him and not the other way around. That's what's going to happen now, because people, again, until Daboll and Shane get the stink of Daniel Jones off of them, they're again, this is the anvil analogy
right
that Homer Jones used. They're going to drown with him. So I've always operated on this. When people say they know what's going on, they all usually don't know what's going on. I'm basically saying I think I know, but I don't know.
Right.
And I'm not going to come out and say this is definitely happened because I don't know. That's the only thing that's what
we're making educated assumptions.
Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing with you. Look, they had the wrong game plan against the Vikings, and the coach admitted that. What I'm just saying is I understand why they did what they did. But I also say this: the things may have worked out differently had Daniel Jones played well. That's you talked about earlier, the 49ers, Kansas City Ravens. I mean, let's use the Ravens as an example. Their quarterback, when he doesn't play well, and he didn't play well in that first game, they look like a different team too. So, Jackson's a different. I mean, that team's up and down depending on their quarterback the same way, and the rest of that team's good. But when their quarterback's not playing well, it drags the rest of that team down.
Right.
It's a quarterback league right now. It really is. If you got a good quarterback, it covers up a multitude of sins. And if you don't have a good quarterback, you're just an also ran or something worse. And the problem the Giants have right now is Daniel Jones is getting worse. That's I did not expect him to be that bad on Sunday. And those people who predicted it were right, but I didn't expect him that bad. I didn't expect him to be throwing things into the dirt like that.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, there's a lot. I watched it multiple times. There are moments in that game early on that if we had completed the pass over the middle, instead of punting, we're kicking a field goal. If we had not had the holding penalty on a longer run, that's another first down and we're moving down the field. A lot of things played against it, but the one constant throughout was the one guy who handles the ball all the time on offense he just wasn't with it. So there's nothing that can be argued about that. There were things that we left on the field, though, that had he made a couple of those, if he just threw it to the guy instead of in the ground, we're talking first downs.
I just know when I rewatched the game and it was those swing passes, I audibly said, "Oh, come on!"
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
So I mean, but you're right. I mean, if you want to be completely fair here, some of his teammates did not help him out. But again, we keep saying that. So it's. And anyway,
you can
end this because again we got long on this. So
the trombone player can be bad, the flute can be bad, but if the conductor's bad, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So there you go. Good note.
So with that being said, we'll give our picks. I'll tag it at the end actually, so it makes it even easier for me to add it in. So we'll let Carly Dakota do her picks right after we're done this. It'll finish, and then that'll be the end of the episode. But what are you seeing for Sunday?
I have no clue. If they don't win this game, where is the game they win? I mean, if they don't win this game, what game do they win?
It's a good point.
I guess they could win Carolina when they're in Germany, but I'm going to say they're going to give us some false hope and win. I say Daniel has his last hurrah here and doesn't look terrible, but God help him if he does. And in a way, it would be better. I mean, again, people are going to get pissed off at me. In a way, it would be better if we just end this now and just move on. So I don't even know and this is going to really piss off me. I don't know if winning this game is a good thing for the Giants because I kind of want to move on at quarterback. And this is just going to give Daniel an excuse if Daniel Jones, if they win the game with Daniel Jones, they're not going to bench him. So, and I want Daniel Jones benched. So, and for the first time in my life, other than maybe like, I don't know if there was a previous season where we really needed a draft pick. I'd have to go back and think about that, but I'm not even sure I mean, when I watch the games, I root for them because it's in my DNA. I root for the Giants. I can't help but not root.
Sure,
for them.
Of course.
But in my head, I don't know if this is a good. I don't know if it's a good thing for them to win. But I'll say they'll win this game just because they'll probably drag this out.
I do feel they're going to win the game. I feel there was a lot of things in the first game that shouldn't have happened. Certain players just didn't seem to play the way they should. Jones is the question mark. If on Sunday all three quarterbacks are active, that tells you right there that they're almost counting on the fact that they're going to be pulling Daniel from the game. There's no reason to activate DeVito because he's the emergency quarterback. They don't have to activate him. But if he's activated, that means that they could throw DeVito in if they felt like it instead of Locke. It doesn't matter who the backup is. And because once they pull Jones, there's no way they would put him back in.
I don't think they'll do that because it'll be too obvious. That's like you said. So I think Locke's healthy enough to play right now. So I think they would just keep bringing DeVito if Locke got hurt. So
I think they win.
I think if they do what you just said, it's so obvious that they've given up on Jones that I don't even think they'll be that obvious.
I think they'll win. I don't really care if Jones plays super well or doesn't play super well. I don't really care about that because I'm already of the mindset that he's not going to be the guy. I said it during the summer. I felt like they already made up their mind. It's a little concerning about how bad it went off the rails, but I think they win. I actually think he plays okay against Washington just because that's his history. He's just for some
But-
reason this is the team he's always played. So if he does it, that's the nail in the coffin.
But the pressure is as high on him now as it can ever because everybody's expecting what you just said.
But it's better that it's on the road and not at home. For him, it's
yeah,
better.
I'm so glad that you said that. It is a godsend for him that this is
Yes.
a road game. It's a godsend. The next two games are road games for him. Really, we're in that position right now that the Giants will be probably better on the road right now because of the fan reaction to
Sure.
Danny Jones. So it is a godsend to him that this is a road game. That's another reason why if they don't win this game, I don't know where the win happens. Yeah, geez. But I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up.
So yeah, I think for me, minus the quarterback, the key to the game really is going to be on the defensive side, and it's how well do we get the rush, like you brought up already, without exposing the lanes. Lane gap and lane responsibility is going to be super important because Daniels will take off and run. So you maintain lane integrity, and we should be okay.
Which will affect the pass rush, though. People have to understand that because you have to be disciplined. You can't go all out after the quarterback. So the sacks and pressures may be down because you have to keep him from hurting you. You just can't just blindly run up the field, or that's when you get in trouble. The only other thing I will say is this: if you are one of those fans who thinks Dable and Shane will survive the season no matter what, this game is important to get for Shane Bowen. He has to do better than the defense
Right.
has to start playing better than it did because we don't know if we have the right defensive coordinator either. So this is an important game for Shane Bowen too. So even if you think the offense is going to be a mess, the defense needs to have a rebound game this week because they made Sam Darnold look. I mean, what was Sam Darnold's quarterback rating in that game? It was 111.
Well, I mean,
whatever.
yeah. Was he 11 for 11 to start the game?
Yes.
I mean,
So
can't have
on that cheery note. Yeah.
So we'll finish it up and stick through right after we call it an end here. You'll see Carly's picks for this weekend, the 5 teams that she's going for, and you might enjoy the little quick video of that what her picks are. So Eric, we'll get back to this. We got a game coming this weekend, and we'll be back on Monday to do our review, and well, we'll see where we go after last week.
See who we are.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.